Welcome back. It's nice to see you again. Though you seem to have caught me at a bad time. It appears I'm a little boxed in at the moment. Gimme just a sec. Ha! Isn't it funny how SpongeBob is one in at least 3 major long-running cartoons that switched to the 16:9 aspect ratio in its 9th season exactly? Getting straight to the point, Season 9 is where this retrospective is finally going to get back on track to being mostly really positive again. Much to the distress of basically 98% of the entire internet, I'm sure. However, that statement also comes with a basement dweller-sized asterisk. You see, Season 9 of SpongeBob SquarePants is the most fascinating season in the entire show from a production standpoint. And it's not even close. The reason? 2 words. Season split. Okay, so basically, Season 9 is very two-faced, as it acts as both the end of the post-movie, or Paul Tibbitt, era of the series, and the beginning of the post-sequel, or Vincent Waller and Mark Ceccarelli, era. Around midway through Season 9's production pipeline, everyone halted progress on everything related to the main SpongeBob series to work on the second SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. This is very much akin to when these exact same circumstances occurred during the making of the first SpongeBob movie, as work on the main SpongeBob series completely halted throughout the entirety of 2003 and most of 2004 when that was going on. Once all of that brouhaha with movie number 2 was taken care of, and production could resume on the main series again, SpongeBob SquarePants received a complete refresh. New showrunners, a complete overhaul of the crew. Several episodes that were already being made before the hiatus were either heavily altered or scrapped entirely. The works. These opposite halves of Season 9 are referred to by the fanbase as Season 9A and Season 9B, respectively. I'm being a little intentionally vague on purpose, as Season 9B will get its own separate introduction when we get to it. So let's keep our focus squarely on Season 9A for now. And yeah, SpongeBob Season 9A sure does exist! Remember when I described Season 8 as Season 7 too? Well, Season 9A is just Season 8 HD. Except at least Season 8 had the decency to be sporting some stop-motion animation and even a mini-series. Rewatching Season 9A again for this video made me realize that this half-season, at least in my humble opinion of course, is the closest the SpongeBob franchise has ever gotten to becoming a zombie of itself. There's definitely some great episodes as always, no sure shitlock, but so many of these just feel like noise. Stuff you put on in the background while you do something else. Some of the least captivating to talk about episodes the show has ever made. I am of firm belief that if Season 9 continued in the direction it was initially going in with 9A, it would have been the worst season of the entire franchise, by a decent margin. Not helping this feeling of running out of steam is how half of the writing team got gutted like an incidental fish. In the transition betwixt Seasons 8 and 9A, we lost Nate Cash, Stephen Banks, Richard Purcell, Danny Michaeli, Sean Shermantz, and Aaron Springer. The only ones still left standing are Casey Alexander, Zeus Service, Luke Brookshire, Mark Ceccarelli, Derek Iverson, Mr. Lawrence, Andrew Goodman, who only worked on 1 episode in all of 9A, and new writer/board artist Blake Lemons, who only helped out with like 4 episodes in 9A and then never worked on the show again. So with the writing staff being reduced, tired as all hell, and the encroaching threat of a second theatrical movie on the horizon, this was nothing short of the perfect storm of blandness. Season 9 has 49 episode segments, 20 of which being in 9A, and 29 of which being in 9B. So at least the better half of the season also just so happens to be the bigger half. It's the season with the show's most obnoxious marketing. It's the season that took the longest to air. It's the season with the most amount of guest stars. It's SpongeBob SquarePants Season 9. Stick around for the ride. This one's an anomaly. Oh yeah, guys, I also made a boatload of new avatar stills and remade some old ones to commemorate the transition to a new aspect ratio. I hope you like them. Thankfully prolonging the suffering by just a little bit, Season 9 actually starts with an explosive bang. An explosive bang that could only be started by the extreme stunt group, the Drasticals. We have Johnny Krill, played by Johnny Knoxville in his first of at least 2 roles in the SpongeBob series, Grand Mal Granny, and my favorite, Not Dead Ted! Woo! If that's his full legal name, then his funeral is going to be really awkward. These jackass wannabes are really fun characters, and even take SpongeBob and Patrick under their hang-glided wings. Extreme Spots certainly gives off a testing the waters kind of vibe, especially when it comes to the new screen size. They're testing the waters to see what gag-driven episodes will look like in HD, testing the waters with Season 9's new character model sheets, the first time these model sheets have been updated since Season 2, by the way, and testing the waters to see what certain locations will look like with this extra wiggle room, including Jellyfish Fields, and even the returning Sand Mountain from Season 3's I Had an Accident. This may be yet another episode that falls under the category of characters derp around in the middle of nowhere, but I don't really mind it here since there's actually entertaining stuff happening. Mamma mia! I know this is an issue that people have with newer SpongeBob stuff in general, how they tend to prioritize squeezing as many gags out of a situation as possible over having overarching plots. However, one, I think that other episodes, especially in the post-sequel era, do a better job at balancing story and comedy. And 2, I do not give a single shit, not gonna lie. Scenes like Not Dead Ted spontaneously combusting, or Patrick admitting that he wears SpongeBob's clothes while he sleeps, give me so much enjoyment that I don't even notice or care that there isn't much of a story to speak of. Extreme Spots is an 8 out of 10, number 24 on the list. And compliments to SpongeBob SquarePants and this episode for having both trans women representation and British people representation. British people be like, Joseph Mother. This is the second episode.
That scene just reminded me of like My Two Krabs, which I would much rather be watching.
Yeah, there's an online game based off of this episode called Guinness O'Ripley's Extreme Arcade of World Records. What the fuck?
What? Who is that? Who
is that?
What is in here?
I didn't even see him there at first.
Look at the fucking logos on the arcades. It looks like shit. Cobra
What is
Milk.
this?
Chainsaw.
What is this?
Holy shit.
Oh my.
If this is on fucking Flashpoint, I wanna.
Oh my god! You know what? I'm including our reaction to that. That's fucking amazing.
Please do. That's so funny.
Do it!
If you were expecting more of a follow-up to the worrying tone I built up for Season 9A at the beginning, then here's where that starts. Oh, and also, Midward jump scare!
Midward!
Wow, this one is so mid that it broke the world record for quickest Midward appearance in a Luke Vaughn retrospective. That's one for the books. Squirrel Record is comparable to a lot of things, but two that come to mind are Pre-Hibernation Week and the segment I literally just bloody talked about. It's a plot about Sandy dragging SpongeBob around to help her do a series of extreme activities against his will, like Pre-Hibernation Week, and it's a very gag-driven, slapstick-heavy episode like Extreme Spots. So why doesn't this one stand up to scrutiny in comparison to those other two? Well, you're going to notice a pattern with 9A, and that is having the energy comparable to a sloth on a Sunday morning without its coffee. When 9A does these types of episodes well, they're done really well. But when they're not, they seriously lack any sense of pacing or structure. Scenes here just kind of happen, and any attempt at a plot is weirdly reserved for the very end. At least Extreme Spots knew that it didn't need to cram in any extra unnecessary story stuff. Not helping is how Season 9A, sans a few great-looking episodes, is the most visually stiff and stilted the animation for this franchise has ever looked. So when an episode such as this one has a complete lack of energy, it's even more noticeable. Cool getting to see the robots from House Sittin' for Sandy again, though. Why did Sandy even want to break every world record anyways? To satiate her own ego? Stupid lemur! Thanks for joining me on such a momentous and historic record-breaking event, Midword.
Midword!
Look! Up in the sky! Is it a birdly? Is it a plane to see? Is it an odious light bulb gag? No! It's Super Luke Man! He's Super Luke Man! And it is I, Super Luke Man! Time to kick some hawk cock! Okay, I am not doing the entire review in this voice. God. Patrick Man is utterly iconic. I'm trying to rack my brain for any potential reasons why it shouldn't be, and I've got nothing. The idea of Patrick being a superhero who's really, really stinky at his job is just a winning combination, I'm sorry. This isn't even the first time this franchise has toyed around with this idea, if Starfish Man from the Creature from the Krusty Krab video game is anything to go by. Starfish Man walked so that Patrick Man could walk slightly faster. He's even featured as an alternate costume in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, as well as having a cameo in the Patrick Star Show. And you know that your episode is good when even 2014 Mr. Enter liked it. And that is exactly how I feel about Patrick Man. It's good. Patrick blundering around town and putting an end to crime as we know it is epic, and those scenes are definitely a sight to behold. But I kinda wish all of these bits had more of a connective tissue. Like, have Patrick's goal from the start be that he wants to unmask a supervillain due to him suspecting one hiding somewhere in town. That way the dirty bubble reveal during the climax would have more weight to it. The key word there is weight because, believe it or not, queso has been compared to the dirty bubble before. Even then, I can't be too harsh with my criticisms towards Patrick Man because he's Patrick Man, the greatest super stooge to ever walk the sea bottom. Even Knuckles the Echidna shows up to congratulate him for catching a boat thief. Yes, this is official and real. Not a favorite of mine, but still an episode my friends and I get a lot of mileage out of. Super 7 out of 10. Super number 28 on my ranking. Sadly, this is also the very last episode that Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway would ever voice in, as the former would pass away during 2012, and the latter would pass away in 2019. And since the crew has been very vocal about not wanting to replace Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's voice actors, they're still in the show in spirit as non-speaking background cameos. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 more. Rest in peace, Ernest Borgnine and Tim Conway. Thank you so much for bringing these wonderful and endearing characters to life. May your legacies be remembered forever. Well, Patrick Man must have jumped into a volcano by now, so my time here is at an end. Remember, kids, no one can imprison you for being wacky. Super Luke Man! Hooray! He's Super Luke Man! And... all this talk about Season 9A being soulless, and we're only just now getting into the real boring slop. Gary's New Toy is a Gary episode that kinda sucks! Go figure! In other news, the grass is green, my ass is huge, and numino-ultramicroscopic silico-volcanoconiosis is the longest word in the English language. Though Gary's New Toy doesn't suck for the same reasons that most other Gary episodes suck. Gary isn't being abused or tormented, the story isn't completely broken, for the most part, none of the characters act horribly out of character, it's just a whole lot of nothing. This episode is a personality vacuum if I've ever seen one. Jokes? Find jokes. Interesting premise? Find premise. Not even Knuckles shows up this time, so I guess we gotta find Knuckles too. I feel this is definitely caused, at least in part, by how this is the only episode to date that Mark Ceccarelli wrote and boarded solo. Luke Brookshire was probably pulling double duty around this time, as he was a writer and board artist for a few early episodes of Uncle Grandpa, which began airing soon after SpongeBob Season 9 did. The only positive things of note here are the 1-800-EAT-CHUM phone number on the bench, which directs you to a Toyota salesperson if you try to call it in real life, and this horrifying Gary drawing done by Virginia Hawes, a character designer on the show who started in Season 5 and left after Season 9. Gary's ball being alive at the end doesn't even make any sense. But not in an endearing, this is a cartoon, so we're using cartoon logic kind of way, but in a, we couldn't think of a third act conflict, so we just cobbled something together way. What the hell ever, man. 4 out of 10, number 42 on my list.
I don't think he's wearing a...
Milkshake? Like the Master Shake? It's amazing how certain episode premises can come from the most unexpected and honestly kind of random places. In this case, SpongeBob's milkshake license was something that was brought up as a non sequitur throwaway gag from Yours, Mine, and Mine in Season 7. What's next? Is Season 17 going to have an episode about the epic backstory of Patrick's marriage license from Farmer Bob? I get what this one is aiming for. It's a boot camp, but the joke is that instead of doing regular boot camp type activities, they're making milkshakes. The humor isn't lost on me, but much like SpongeBob with a cherry sniper, License to Milkshake kind of misses the mark. The actual plot feels very clunky and thrown together. They try to pass off this idea that SpongeBob is some unteachable menace, but unlike a lot of boating school episodes, they don't convey that very well. Every time SpongeBob screws something up, it's not even because of his own incompetence, but rather the technology of the institution just not functioning properly. He gets made fun of by a bunch of prepubescent jackasses and failed by his teacher over something that's not even his fault. What is this, the American education system? On a related note, Captain Frosty Mug is just Diet Sergeant Roderick in design, in voice, in personality, in competence. And while I appreciate the attempt to flesh out his character, his backstory is really fucking stupid. What in the fresh hell do you mean that you're afraid of the milkshake equipment after an accident in your youth? Motherfucker! You work at a milk Milkshake Academy! That's like if I got in a traumatic bear mauling accident when I was a kid, and then decided to get a job at the zoo! In a bear exhibit! Though the episode itself is better than the commercials advertising it.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard, and then
I at least like the style that License to Milkshake is going for. I'm sure all of the Top Gun fans will appreciate the homage. 6 out of 10. Oh. Why? That is the most unsavory thing we've done for a rating gag in this retrospective series so far. Ugh. Huh. Why do I feel like this is building up to something? Oh. Oh no! You knew it the whole time! And to be fair, I haven't exactly been subtle about it. To go off on a slight tangent, if there's any word that I absolutely cannot stand anymore, it's objectively. Specifically with how people use it. This thing is objectively good. This thing is objectively bad. I hate this word because it fails to take into account that when talking about opinions, everything is subjective. Very few things in this world are actually objectively true. It completely devalues the perspective of an individual, and that is an ideology I just cannot get behind. I don't care what piece of media we're talking about or what its popular consensus is. To give a specific example of what I mean, let's talk video games. Most people would probably say something like, 16-bit graphics are objectively better than 8-bit graphics because there's more bits. And yeah, this might have been the perspective like 30 years ago, but the perception on gaming and the way we look at graphics has changed so much since then. That statement fails to take into account how someone might just genuinely prefer the look and style of 8-bit compared to 16-bit. Lampshading your own radicalized opinion by saying that something is objectively better or worse than something else has always come across as extremely pretentious to me. I know that I'm guilty of misusing this word a couple times throughout this retrospective, and I sincerely apologize for that. My views on things have changed quite a bit since I first started this series. Now, with all of that out there, Squid Baby is objectively the worst SpongeBob SquarePants episode ever made. The Scent of Money may be the episode that I hate the most, but Squid Baby is objectively the worst one. And now that I further understand my feelings towards that word, when I use it, I mean it! Part of me doesn't even feel like I have to explain myself. Just show the screenshot of the close-up of Squidward crapping himself, and that'll get the job done! But I have to do this. I have to go through the grueling process of expressing in meticulous detail why I despise this sorry excuse for entertainment if I'm ever going to escape this mental torment. This actually feels like a writer's barely disguised fetish episode, which is another overused internet criticism that I've openly mocked. But this is the one time I will use it unironically when talking about SpongeBob. Other jokes in media about uncomfortable/gross topics like vor and feet and farts, regardless of how they're executed, usually happen at a come-and-go pace. They don't often relish in themselves for prolonged periods of time like this one does. Squid Baby is an episode of TV that wallows in its own feces, both figuratively and literally. Unfortunately, adult diaper fetishes are a real thing that exist. And while I'm not accusing anyone on the SpongeBob staff of anything, it boggles my mind that this concept even slipped through the cracks. Though considering that this is Foot Fetish Incorporated we're talking about, I suppose it was only a matter of time. It just comes across as so creepy and disgusting. I sincerely wonder what SpongeBob's main target audience, children, thinks of this episode. Who was this even made for? This is the grossest the show has ever been. This is the most uncomfortable the show has ever been. This is even the most try-hard the show has ever been, if that awful my leg gag is anything to go by. One slightly amusing joke, and an admittedly nice rainy atmosphere in the third act, can't salvage what is otherwise an 11-minute piece of television that makes me squirm. Even when you remove the truly, horrifically repulsive scenes, what you're left with is the most trite, monotonous, uninspired babysitting story they could have conceived. And while I usually find SpongeBob and Patrick's childish antics to be endearing, them acting like literal babies during the opening here reminds me that there is a stark difference between childishly charming and sickeningly infantile. In a battle between this and The Scent of Money to decide which I think is the worst SpongeBob episode ever, it's honestly impossible to decide, as I hate both of them for completely different reasons. Because it's a fight between actual animal abuse and adult diaper fetish. Pick your poison. I'll begrudgingly give The Scent of Money this. The concept of a Mr. Krabs and Gary episode could have worked under an entirely different execution. Does anyone in their right mind want to see Squidward acting like a baby, with constant nails on a chalkboard crying, and then eventually defecating himself? The only reason I'm not screaming bloody murder right now is because this is the episode that finally broke me. While rewatching this season with friends, I opted to get drunk while we watched this one to numb the pain. And my friends got more merriment out of my drunk ramblings than anything in this filth. Don't worry though. The SpongeBob equivalent of the 9th circle of hell has left a permanent, nearly unhealable scar on my psyche. You'll see exaggeratedly angry Luke Vaughn a handful of times throughout Season 9. I can promise you that. No matter how bad things get from here on out, just know that it can only go uphill from here. There's nowhere else left to go. If you thought we were finally out of the shit-eating woods, then boy oh boy do I have some unfortunate news for you. I'm immediately docking off 5 points just for this one scene. Never cook again. Gee willikers! It's another episode that makes this fanbase cry themselves to sleep at night. Which side will Luke Vaughn take this time? Will he agree with the popular consensus that Little Yellow Book smells? Or will he dare to think for himself and actually enjoy the episode like the filthy contrarian he is? You know what? I'm feeling mischievous today, so I choose neither. I have 1 foot on each side of the line here. That's a 5 out of 10 if I've ever seen one. Number 40 on the ranking. I'm extremely mixed on this one. On the one hand, there's an entire backlog of really funny moments here that I think people overlook. Mr. Krabs canonically has an afro, Squidward regularly cusses SpongeBob out on a daily basis, and this policewoman had a brother once! But on the multiple other hands, the actual writing and story here is anything but a page-turner. Blah blah blah, Squidward is a jerk and doesn't learn anything. Blah blah blah, the Bikini Bottomites are hypocritical douches. Yap yap yap. I agree with all of the complaints. Cool! That's boring! Well then, it's a good thing that this episode has a whole other legacy that completely eclipses everything else. Mocking SpongeBob. It's...
Got for sacred Krusty Krab episodes. I love Krusty Krab episodes.
It's the worst It's the worst-
I fucking hate
Shut up, bitch! It's the worst big SpongeBob meme face. Absolutely no offense to the artists who brought this expression to life, though. Luke Brookshire did the roughs, and Dave Cunningham did the plussed version. And they could have never predicted the monstrosity they were about to unleash, but it's just not a funny meme! Wait, why did they use CGI for that? What? Well, since I appear to be stuck in a rather remote and slightly scary landscape, I reckon that means we're at bumper to bumper now. And that perfectly segues into talking about the visuals. Yeah, this is the first of the 3 episodes in 9A that I think look really, really good. Not that the bar is very high, but you know... The rather remote and slightly scary landscape is very well designed and visually appealing. I love how the flower clouds in the sky look like they're melting into the background. It is indeed rather remote and slightly scary. And of course, we can't talk about the visuals without bringing up the cartoon drug trip freakout sequence. Actually, one of my favorite cartoon tropes of all time. I don't even care. Even stuff like the lighting inside of SpongeBob's house when he's depressed, or the climax when SpongeBob and Mrs. Puff are pinballing between boats on the highway. The switch to HD is definitely doing them good. This is also the episode where the typical generic boating school formula is pushed to its logical extreme. Mrs. Puff really snaps at SpongeBob this time. She finally figures out why he's terrible at driving. And this is the closest SpongeBob has ever gotten to getting his driver's license. I'm relieved that they end up straying away from this paint-by-number structure and eventually do more unique and creative things with the boating school episodes. But this is still a very nice last hurrah for the SpongeBob tries to get his driver's license saga. This is even the last time they end on a gag of this repeat offender getting arrested, at least up until season 13. 8 out of 10, number 26 on the list. With Bumper to Bumper being the only major Mrs. Puff episode of season 9, I'm glad it's at least a really good one. And if you needed another peek into the subconscious of this insane instructor, we see yet another portrait in a portrait in a portrait inside of her house. Whatever's going on in that brain of hers, I hope I never see it. What? What? Do you really expect me to get up on a stool, pull my dress up that I'm not even wearing, and start shrieking in fear? Ugh, fine. Eek, an urchin. There, roll credits. When one of your main central locations in your television show is something as ubiquitous as a fast food restaurant, there are certain episode concepts that you're going to make a beeline for right away, and certain others that are so obvious that you just leave them on the back burner until years later. A pest in the kitchen plot? Well, geez, what took you so long? And with that comes the proper introduction / reinvention of the sea urchins in the show. Or, as they're better represented as now, The cockroaches of the sea. Sea urchins have appeared in the series before, but they were merely just black dots that didn't do much. From Econ Urchin onwards, these prickly pricks are more detailed and defined. Soon down the road, they'll even make some full-on sea urchin characters. The TV entertainer Sir Urchin, one half of a comedy duo with his partner Snail Mail, and Ouchie, Patrick's pet sea urchin from the Patrick Star Show. And what an introduction it is, cause this is such a great one. How do you like that? A Season 9A episode that actually understands good pacing. An episode that features Plankton teaming up with the Krusty crew with no double-crossing from either side. An episode that hurls tons of jokes at the viewer with very strong results.
Finally, I have a foolproof plan to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. Krabs will never recognize me wearing these glasses.
Wow, it's almost like SpongeBob SquarePants is a good cartoon or something, I don't know. Even smaller things like the design of Plankton's bucket-shaped robot get me so giddy. He looks like an enemy that would be in a SpongeBob SquarePants video game. He is so shaped. 9 spines out of 10, number 16 on my ranking. Apparently there was an airing of this episode in Japan that was interrupted by an emergency earthquake warning. Yikes. If more 9A episodes were as fun and high energy as this one, then there'd be very little to complain about. And cue the YouTube poops.
Nope.
Got it!
Oh, I crap myself again. You gotta be kidding me. A little bit got out. Oh.
I might. What are you talking about?
YouTube poo.
Krabs will never recognize me wearing.
Krabs will never recognize me wearing.
Krabs will never recognize me wearing.
Krabs will never recognize.
Glasses?
Oh, of course this of all episodes was the first out of the 4 that Blake Lemons worked on. Do you think someone with a name that funny is also friends with Charlie Bean? A character dynamic throughout the show that has rarely ever been explored is that of Squidward and Sandy. Which is a damn shame because to me it feels just ripe for opportunity. The closest that this odd couple gets to interacting are Squidtastic Voyage, this, and an episode we'll look at next season. But even still, we've yet to have a full episode where it's just these two going at it and bouncing off of each other for extended periods of time. Wanna know something else that the series rarely ever does anymore? Karate episodes. For over 10 years, this was the most recent one up until Season 14 broke that vow of silence with the episode Single-Celled Defense. And thank Poseidon for that, because this would have been an awful way to end this chopping spree. I hate Squid Defense. I really, really hate Squid Defense. Like, a lot. I'm about to turn into the Luke Nuke, cause I'm about to explode! It sure is cool how Squidward and Sandy interact with each other about as well as dodo birds interact with the living world! It sure is cool how karate in the show now has been reduced to mundane, lame-as-hell house chores! It sure is cool how the twist ending is really fucking predictable and annoying! Oh, you were trying to return Squidward's groceries, huh? That's funny. That's really funny. You see, okay, if that was the case, why were you following him in the alley when he still had his groceries? Fuckface! This show has done so many of the character who seems threatening is not actually threatening at all. Ooh, look at us, we're so quirky. Ass pulls. And I usually don't mind it in other episodes, but this is the bottom of the barrel execution of it. Not even unique karate chop screen transitions or the generic Bikini Bottom groceries getting an upgrade can save this slop. 2 out of 10, number 47 on my list. Aren't you so happy that I'm bitching about this dumb shit episode right now? Aren't you so goddamn glad that this is just one more annoyance that stands between me and the post-sequel / Vincent Waller and Mark Ceccarelli era? God, I can't stand Squid Defense! Lifeless, soulless garbage! Okay, Matt, you're probably exhausted from editing by now, so you can hit the showers. Lamp Dude, you're up. I gotta say, for being an evil genius mastermind bent on world domination who openly advertises his business and said world domination, you'd think the Bikini Bottom police would be on his case more. But no, outside of a couple scenes in Krabby Road from season 6, this is the first we've really seen of Plankton's prison life. Jailbreak is basically everything I could have ever wanted out of Doing Time from Season 3. We actually get to witness what a day behind bars is like for this pint-sized jailbird. His phone calls with a visiting Karen, how he socializes with his fellow cellmates, and most devious of all, how this kleptomaniac keeps escaping! It's no wonder Plankton is just allowed to casually roam the streets. The police force have probably done the same song and dance with him so many times that all they do now is just give him a slap on his green wrist. Though, as we'll see in future seasons, there have been a couple other ways that the law has tried to throw the book at him. This is just a fun world-building episode to me. Not to mention I have a soft spot for Jailbreak stories as a concept. You guys are schnoozing on Muppets Most Wanted. It's a great movie. With a SpongeBob played by a very sick-sounding Tom Kenny, 2 alternate titles in Germany specifically, and an all-male cast of prisoners, Jailbreak sure does say a lot about our society. 9 out of 10. Prisoner number 21. Now all we need is a Mrs. Puff prison episode. That's not a hallucination!
Please, Plankton, hold it right there! Uh-oh. What the fuck?
If you're getting exhausted from all of the constant episode comparisons recently, I'm sorry to say it's not going to stop anytime soon. That's just the nature with these types of shows that have gone on for what feels like centuries. So for not the first and not the last episode about SpongeBob breaking his spatula, they opted to take a different approach. All That Glitters is more about SpongeBob's emotional attachment to his spatula, while Evil Spatula makes it part of another Plankton scheme. In a plot that the episode itself admits is overly complicated, Plankton sabotages SpongeBob's spatula and replaces it with a robotic one to trick the secret formula out of him. See, you can tell it's an episode I don't have a lot to talk about whenever I start filling time by describing the premise. Nah, but for real, this is a pretty decent one. Maybe I'm just immature or too easily entertained or whatever condescending thing you want to call me, but applying a frequency only chipmunks can hear over Doug Lawrence's Plankton voice makes me cackle. It makes anything that comes out of his mouth sound 46.2 times funnier, especially when they're telling an actual joke. If I had any major criticisms, though, I think it would have been more creative if the episode was structured in a series of smaller plans instead of one big plan. Plankton is shown in the episode to have a spatula emporium at the Chum Bucket, right? Don't question how he suddenly got all of these. He probably bought them off of the Bikini Bottom black market. What if Plankton kept giving SpongeBob different robotic spatulas to enact his plan, but they all kept breaking or malfunctioning in different ways? That would have left more opportunities for gags, I think. Again, Evil Spatula is decent, but it's not too standout in a half season that already doesn't have too many standouts.
7 out of 10. Number 33 on the ranking.
With this being the only episode in Season 9A where Andrew Goodman had a hand in writing, it makes you wonder what he was even up to during this time of the show's history. If you're looking for a real legendary episode about SpongeBob's kitchen sword, we're gonna have to wait a few more seasons.
Squidward, it's an emergency! I'm gonna need your bike! Hop on, SpongeBob!
I think I can comfortably say without any pushback that 2014 was the absolute worst year to be a SpongeBob fan. Without question, the show stopping production for about a year and the crew shakeup that followed undeniably helped SpongeBob in the long run. But that also came with the misfortunate side effect of leaving their backlog, let's just say, emptier than GameStop's game selection nowadays. You want to know how many SpongeBob episodes aired throughout the year of 2014? 2. 2! With It Came From Goo Lagoon being one of them. Relieved that this porous terror didn't become my main hyperfixation again until 2017, because what the balls? Or should I say, goo balls. Ew. SquarePants and friends are so keen on having their specials be exclusively about holidays these days. Mainly Halloween and Christmas, because those are the most marketable ones! That you kind of forget that they could also just be stories that are bigger in scope than usual. Goo Lagoon is a location that, while an iconic landmark in SpongeBob's world, isn't really the most interesting. It's a beach. She may be hot and wet, but she don't do much. So giving it actual lore, no matter how little or insignificant, is pretty cool. And before anyone decides to, actually, in the comments, that's my job, remember, the official SpongeBob YouTube channel has explained how it's possible for there to be water underwater. Also, it's a cartoon, you goddamn pansy! Aside from the lore dump, It Came From Goo Lagoon is a special that is mainly held up by its comedic writing. This entire script is peppered with hilarious moment after hilarious moment. Some highlights include the already shown scene of Sandy and SpongeBob stealing Squidward's ride, the existence of my man, SpongeBlob, Sandy subtly admitting that she just nukes people she doesn't like, and every single breath of water that comes out of Plankton's shotgun mouth. Every single insult, every single roast, every single line of dialogue that comes out of this spiteful little dickhead's mouth is just the guy writing fire gif. If this special was prettier to look at, had a little more going on, and had a more bombastic conclusion, it would be a favorite of mine for sure. But as it stands, it's still pretty goo-rate. 8 out of goo-rose. It's the footage that people always use when talking about Mr. Krabs because finding new footage is too hard, I guess. Continuing the train of thought of sometimes 11 minutes isn't enough time to tell a story from Born Again Krabs. 6 seasons ago, Jesus. Often, this can result in episodes feeling way too overstuffed. And boyo, Safe Deposit Krabs sure does fit that bill. With the exception of Squidward, everyone's favorite red-clawed barnacle bastard is the character that has lost his mind the most consistently throughout the franchise. Makes sense, he is a war veteran and has experienced hell on Earth. So shoving Mr. Krabs in a box and forcing him to spend quality time with his favorite thing for an extended period of time sounds like a great way to test his sanity. The key word there is sound. There's just too much going on here, and the episode feels really discombobulated and unfocused. Every time Krabs' journey to insanity feels like it's picking up steam, we cut back to SpongeBob and Patrick trying to break the bank. The bank of Bikini Bottom Bank. I feel bad, too. I've heard this is one of the more well-liked episodes from Season 9A, but the execution just falls flat for me. 5 out of 10, number 39 on the list. Safe Deposit Krabs is also the last episode for a couple things. It's the final episode to have Mark fight, an occasional voice actor from seasons 4 through 9, as part of the voice cast. A couple of my favorite roles of his in the show include Old Man Walker in Fear of a Krabby Patty, and the security guard he voices here has a really good line.
Were you people trained in a barn?
And it's also the final episode to be worked on by Derek Iverson, though considering how many scrapped episodes Season 9 has, he probably worked on a few of those. Plus, we do know that he worked on some of the original outlines for the early versions of some Season 9B episodes. A few notable things he worked on after SpongeBob include Sanjay and Craig, Billy Dilly, and the Animaniacs reboot. Actually, no, I want to go back to this Mr. Krabs footage. Why is this one of the only things people use when talking about Mr. Krabs? I'd actually prefer if they used crappy Watch Cartoon Online rips of other episodes, because at least there would be more variety! Yak, 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 yap, yap, Sorry, yap. folks. Rumble, It appears rumble, that rumble. this Luke is on the
Angry noises.
fritz.
Angry
We're gonna have
noises.
to lock him up in the
Grr.
vault.
Yak, yak, yak.
What? What? What are you doing? Unhand me, you cad! No! You can't do this! I'm the Luke from the very start of the retrospective! They're trying to replace me! Get me out of here! You can't do this! They're replacing me! They're replacing me! You'll never see the same Luke again!
Here it is, the Pink City. Hunter Pound. Your perfect pet awaits. Now, if you just listen to your heart, you'll be able to pick out the right pet as soon as you see it.
Too big. Too sloppy. Too stupid.
Hey, Elaine.
At last, I can fully and completely gush about an episode this season. No holds barred. Plankton's pet is everything. It was the brightest beacon of light during a time when SpongeBob was about to enter what would have been its darkest period. And it's the episode that permanently changed the trajectory of Plankton's character and how the writers go about using him. From here on out, we'll start to see more and more Plankton episodes pop up where he gets to do other things. Whether it be feuding with Krabs over something completely unrelated to the formula, hanging out with SpongeBob, usually against his will, becoming insecure about his cute and squishy appearance, or even truly starting a family and having his own son. This one is wild, by the way, but we'll get there. Not every single starring role of his has to be about him chasing the recipe of a hamburger. And it all circles back here. Who knew that the only thing the world's smallest dictator needed to mellow out was his own pet dog? As a certified dog person myself, I wholeheartedly approve of this development. I just love this trope, and you can thank Lord Hater and Captain Tim's relationship from Wander Over Yonder for that. Here comes the world's goodest boy now! Spot the amoeba! Oh, there he is! He's so cute! Plankton's titular pet can do everything a regular dog can do, but with the combined powers of single-celled organisms and the Toon Force, he becomes a true standout among cartoon dogs. Amazingly creative use of the species. And the best part is, since Spot and the episode he comes from are such fan favorites, he's now reached the status of permanent mainstay, getting many more of his own episodes, as well as sporadic appearances. It's such an intriguing part of SpongeBob's history to me, and he's nothing more than a green speck. Best episode of Season 9A by a chasm-sized margin. 10 out of 10. Number 4 on my ranking. It's creative, it's genuinely sweet, It's the last ever appearance of Karen's wall form, and boy is it ever hilarious. It's Plankton's pet, baby. You twos, give us a Spot plushie, please. Name your price. Well, it only makes sense that because we just got past Season 9A's best episode, its second best episode would be stalking, only inches behind. In keeping tradition with most of its fellow brethren, so many of the best SpongeBob episodes used to be, continue to be, and always will be the spookiest ones. The types of episodes that will make the adult cartoon fans appreciate the artistry, and make all of the children in the audience piss their pants. What is the one surefire thing that can fill a sea creature with terror like no other? Not counting Slasher McGee, of course, but he's chill.
Oh my god.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Yo!
It's Slasher McGee!
My man Slasher McGee!
My man Slasher McGee!
Yo!
One of the greatest joke characters of all time.
All alone?
Yeah!
That's such a good fucking gag. It's one of those, like, it's just a complete non sequitur. It has nothing to do with anything. We never see this fucking character ever again. We don't know how SpongeBob and Patrick know of this random creepy guy. It's so good.
They just talk of him like so casually.
It's those lumbering, surface-dwelling fishermen with their fish hooks, their giant boats, turquoise skin, nasally laugh, and bulbous nose. Oh, god damn it, Squidward! Don't look now takes the Squidward screws with SpongeBob and Patrick formula and pumps it full of Nightmare on Elm Street sauce. Now I want to see who would win in a fight between Fisherman Squidward and a bunch of other horror movie mascot characters. My bet's on Art the Clown. And despite this Bloody Mary of an episode leaving a trail of fish guts wherever she goes, I gotta admit she's hot to look at. Don't Look Now's visuals, lighting, and atmosphere are incomparable to the rest of Season 9A. That's also in addition to the hilariously over-the-top whack-ass expressions. A must-watch around Halloween, and overall just a great time. Fix up the pacing, and it would be the undisputed king of 9A for me. Very high 9 out of 10, being hooked up to number 11 on the list. Also, I'm debunking this right now, but the music that plays in the scene where SpongeBob and Patrick beat up Squidward is not, I repeat, not an intentional reference to Now That We're Men from the first SpongeBob movie. It's a production track from APM called Fight 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 A, and has played in the show multiple times. It's stuff like this that makes me want to make a SpongeBob misconceptions video so badly, but let's just cross that bridge when we burn it.
A rye sandwich carved entirely of driftwood? Mamma mia!
Yeah, this sure does feel like your average Season 9A episode, alright. We are mere inches away from finishing the Paul Tibbitt era, and we're about to enter an era that, I'll just be straight up honest, I personally feel a lot more passionate about. So if this next review seems rushed or seems like I glazed over anything, then that's why. But like, can you really blame me? Séance Shméance is so boring, it makes my soul leave my body. Quite possibly the biggest Nothing Burger episode in 9A, where they also happen to make the Nothing Burger. I don't even feel it necessary to ask where the Flying Dutchman is in an episode about ghosts, because everybody has already asked that. He doesn't appear throughout this entire season, might I add, so Three of the only things that made my ears even slightly perk up while watching this again were Patrick blatantly breaking the fourth wall, Old Man Jenkins' current design is used here, first seen in the main drain, and how this is the only SpongeBob thing I've ever seen to use the word kerfuffle. What? It's a funny word. I really should add it to my personal lexicon. I'm not going to say that no passion was put into this because that would be kind of disingenuous. But wow, does the final product really lack any kind of style or flair other than being just another SpongeBob cartoon. And since one of my main goals with this retrospective is to shine a spotlight on every single episode and give each and every one a fair chance to prove themselves, these are my least favorite types of episodes to review. 4 out of 10, number 44 on the ranking.
I'm gonna try for 5 seconds next.
Keep that up and you'll lose consciousness. Tentacles crossed.
Silly Squidward. I'm not gonna...
Isn't it surreal whenever they draw a creature from the surface world in the regular 2D SpongeBob art style? Being the second SpongeBob episode about unhealthy celebrity worship, Kenny the Cat differs drastically from its Season 2 inspiration. Kevin the Sea Cucumber is the type of influencer who's just a self-entitled prick and only became famous for shallow reasons, while Kenny T. Cat is a good-hearted person who genuinely wanted to inspire people, even if it was through dishonest means. There's probably some comparison you could make to real-life celebrities, but I don't go out of my way to follow celebrity culture, so the editor for this segment can probably insert a joke here. Speaking of celebrities, KTC is played by one, Biz Markie, rest in peace. And with the exception of a Kevin Michael Richardson cameo in Season 3's Party Pooper Pants, this marks the first ever African-American voice actor to be on SpongeBob SquarePants. Wow, neat. Kenneth the Feline is a pretty good character too, purely based on how ridiculous of a concept he is. And if the inspiration wasn't obvious enough, his color palette is like 99% identical to Tom's from Tom and Jerry. And if that wasn't enough, there's also this image from the SpongeBob wiki. Whether this is a coincidence or not, it's still funny. Even despite all of that, the most noteworthy thing about this one is the way it looks. Bumper to Bumper may be the most trippy, and Don't Look Now may have the strongest atmosphere, but Kenny the Cat is on a whole different level. It just looks great. This just feels like it was plucked straight out of the post-sequel era, due to the large amount of visual gags and top-tier character acting. That may be thanks in part to the briefly returning Eric Wise, who hasn't worked on the show since Season 5. Between his visits to Bikini Bottom, Eric has done stuff like being a co-creator of The Mighty Bee, as well as a writer and director on Sonic Prime. As of writing this, he's currently working on the 4th theatrical SpongeBob movie, so let's hope his work pays off. 7 pairs of cat ears out of 10, number 29 on the list. Cat the Kenny is simple fun, but I don't know how I feel about the reveal of Sandy just being outright racist against cats. I mean, I guess it makes sense cause she's a southerner, but damn. They really did not know what to do with Sandy's character in this season, other than making her a stupid bitch, huh? Luke's not so wacky fact. Due to the hiatus brought on by the production of the second SpongeBob movie, Yeti Krabs didn't air until an entire year after its sister episode. Down to the exact day, too! Oh yeah, I am so glad I wasn't keeping up with SpongeBob in 2014. For an actual Luke's wacky fact, did you know that Yeti Krabs are actual animals that exist in real life? They were first discovered in 2005, and what looks like hair are actually spines. Isn't the animal kingdom just wild? Yeti Krabs is dull, drab, mundane, stale, uninteresting, etc, etc, etc. The whole thing is just SpongeBob doing regular chores around the Krusty Krab, while a Yeti Krab stands there and looks slightly menacing. A couple good visual gags and one nice Squidward scene does not a good episode make, I'm afraid. Boring, boring Yeti Krabs. 4 out of 10, number 43 on my ranking. Now that that's out of the way, I want to take this opportunity to bring up something here that I didn't have time to bring up anywhere else. And that's the coloring of 9A. Maybe it's just the rips of the episodes I have, but it looks super weird. The colors are a little too bright looking, and they do this really annoying thing with all of the whites, where instead of actually looking white, they're a very, very light gray. I know people wouldn't notice this or even care, but it really bothers me. And again, only 9A specifically has this problem, so I'm glad they were able to fix the coloring issues later. Now that we've reached the final 11-minute episode of this era of SpongeBob, that also means the final time these two crew members will work together. Zeus Service. He would end up freelancing a few episodes for season 11, before fully returning to the series as solely a storyboard artist in season 13, and Casey Alexander, who just recently, as of writing this, has returned to the franchise via season 4 of the Patrick Star Show. It's insane to think that this pair, who have been working on episodes together since season 5, are finally splitting up. The winds of change will be blowing in our direction very shortly. But first, there's one final beast we have to slay. SpongeBob, you're fired. Or as I like to call it, the final boss of the post-movie era of SpongeBob. As if things couldn't get any shittier, this offense to the senses is a 22-minute special that has lived in the Nickelodeon Hall of Shame. Every single possible complaint that anyone has ever had with the post-movie era is rolled up into one disgusting, writhing, corporate mass of bad decisions and broken dreams. This special is such a disgrace that it ended up being on the real-life news, albeit for idiotic reasons. But even then, that's still wild to me. I have never met a single genuine fan of this episode in my life, and I hope I never do. Let's cut the poetry crap and get straight to the violence. I'm out for blood today. The biggest and by far the most prominent problem with post-movie that wormed its way here is the pacing. Don't you just take delight in how scenes like SpongeBob crying go on for an entire minute? Or how Patrick showing SpongeBob the joys of unemployment goes on for multiple scenes? Or how SpongeBob trying to work at other restaurants is elongated to desperately fill in the runtime instead of just a quick montage? If SpongeBob You're Fired still clapped major ass cheeks, but at least didn't feel like it took years off your life, it would at the very least be entertainingly bad instead of a fucking slog. How about the ludicrous amounts of filler? You'd think scenes like the opening of SpongeBob dicking around at the Krusty Krab, or SpongeBob making snail food from scratch, would actually serve some purpose to this story that they oh so clearly wanted their fans to experience. But this just reeks of constant rewrites and meddling with the script. Oh, and you bet your sweet Bippy that you can't talk about post-movie SpongeBob without talking about how the characters became the worst fucking fictional characters to ever exist, apparently. Normally, this is a complaint that I'd bite back against, but SpongeBob You're Fired sure doesn't skimp out on that either. Sandy is performing dangerous experiments on random bystanders. Mr. Krabs fires SpongeBob for basically no reason. They just needed an extremely forced excuse to get the plot started without putting any thought into if it would make sense or not. And then there's SpongeBob, whose portrayal here arguably pisses me off the most. SpongeBob is an extremely happy and optimistic character by nature, and that appeal comes from him seeing the best out of everything in his life, not just his job. So SpongeBob crumbling to pieces after being fired and not seeing value in anything else in his life is kinda gross, actually. God, this episode sucks so much! What were they thinking? Wait, that's right! Danny Michaeli said in an interview that most of the specials from this period of the show were ones that were ordered by the network. Oh my god. There's my smoking gun. It all makes sense now. That explains why this blatant ratings track premise is 22 minutes. That explains why this episode gives off the vibe of the writers working on it at gunpoint. That explains why this whole thing feels so derivative of so many other episodes. That explains why this is the most corporate piece of SpongeBob media ever made. Outside of maybe the Sandy movie. It always circles back to the out-of-touch executives in charge of everything. For years and years, people blamed the state of SpongeBob during this era on the creative team themselves. Steven Hillenburg leaving, Paul Tibbitt becoming the showrunner, a mostly new wave of writers and board artists. Surely they are responsible for the downfall of this once beloved icon. They never worked on the first 3 seasons. How could they possibly know the appeal of this character and his world? Completely failing to take into account that when criticizing mainstream animation, it's almost never the fault of the actual artists. Rather, it's the bigwigs in charge who don't respect this medium making such asinine decisions. You'd think they were done as an act of sabotage. Oh wait! I may have my problems with post-movie SpongeBob, but I hold no grudges against any of the people who worked on these episodes. However, I do hold a grudge against SpongeBob You're Fired, purely on the basis of being the most soulless episode of the entire series. I may hate episodes like The Scent of Money and Squid Baby more, but I respect SpongeBob You're Fired much, much less. SpongeBob as a series was on its deathbed by this point, and this could have been the final nail in the coffin and had done irreversible damage to this show's identity and perception if things didn't change. And fast! 1 out of 10! Number 48! And that's it. 5.5 seasons worth of television covered. A brand new era is almost here. But first, I have some unfinished business to take care of. Wow, that last segment was pretty intense, huh? I can tell by the look on your face that you need a bit of a break, so why don't we take a breather with the first ever intermission of this retrospective? I need a few minutes to set up the absolute peak fiction that is rapidly approaching anyways. After building it up for so long, and probably pissing a lot of people off, the time has finally come for me to talk about the post-sequel era, or the Vincent Waller and Mark Cesarelli era, of SpongeBob SquarePants. Let's go basic and start with some background info. As previously mentioned, progress on Season 9 completely froze during production of the second movie, meaning that the main SpongeBob show was left abandoned for about a year or so. When things with Sponge Out of Water eventually wrapped up and the crew was ready to climb back into their sponge saddles, it was clear some big changes needed to be made. Firstly, and most importantly, is how Paul Tibbitt stepped down as showrunner once and for all, after his 10-year tenure. He would still work on the show as an executive producer up until the end of Season 9, but his showrunning shoes would end up being filled by not just one, but 2 different people. Vincent Waller, someone who has written and storyboarded a handful of episodes for the series, including Texas, Krabs vs. Plankton, and Mooncation, as well as being SpongeBob's creative director during the Paul Tibbitt era. And Mark Cesarelli, a fairly recent crew member who only started out just a few years prior as a writer and storyboard artist during Season 8. And with new showrunners, they decided to completely change up how episodes are made. See, up to this point, SpongeBob has always been a storyboard-driven cartoon, meaning that episodes would be written and storyboarded simultaneously. An episode's script was basically also being written by the same people who draw everything. It's how a lot of early cartoons were made. However, in a creative decision decided upon by the crew themselves, SpongeBob was going to be script-driven from now on. This pretty much means that an episode's script is written first, and then it's storyboarded. And by a different person, too. In an interview from 2024, Paul Tibbitt himself gave a reason for this change, stating, "In an effort to take some of the pressure off of the board artists, because I can tell you from experience it's really hard to do from a short outline, I brought in a friend of mine who was a writer on South Park to run the writer's room, because he was used to the 6-day turnaround on South Park." There has always been an adversarial relationship in animation between writers and board artists, and I thought I could change that. It really came out of the difficulty of hiring storyboard artists who could also write. I can completely respect this change, as many people's gripes with the past few seasons was the really undercooked writing. It makes sense that they'd want to focus on a script first and make them the best they can be, before being shipped off to be storyboarded. I'll continue to delve into further detail about how Vincent and Mark run things on the show, as there's just too much to mention here all at once, including all of the new and returning crew members. Though there is one very important returning crew member that I feel necessary to mention now, and that's Mr. Steven Hillenburg himself. After being a creative consultant during Paul Tibbitt's years on The Sponge, and coming back to help with the second SpongeBob movie, Hillenburg is now a major player in the series again. He's not the head honcho of things, but he's still heavily involved with the production of every episode, and is credited as the executive producer. With the crew picking things up in the middle of an already existing season, that meant that some planned episodes were heavily reworked, while others were left to die. Two of the most infamous scrapped episodes from Season 9A are Krabs' Army, an episode about Mr. Krabs running a boot camp to whip SpongeBob and Squidward into shape, and SpaceBob Invader Pants, an episode about the Krusty Krab being abducted by aliens. Though there are plenty of other scrapped Season 9A episodes that we know much less about, only knowing about some titles and that's it. Is that all? Can I stop giving a history lesson now? To me, Season 9B is the closest that SpongeBob has ever gotten to recapturing the atmosphere and vibe of the first 3 seasons, aka the Steven Hillenburg era, and I am so excited to talk about this very lovable family of episodes. I'll shoot you guys straight. I will not apologize for the person I am about to become when reviewing this era. I love all of SpongeBob, of course. Gotta respect your elders and all that. But post-sequel is on a whole nother level for me. This is what this entire retrospective has been building up to for me, and I have no shame in admitting that. Yeah, that's enough of an introduction for now. Gotta keep this motor mouth in tip-top shape for all of the passion that's gonna pour out of it. If this video ends up coming out on time, God please let it come out on time, then today should be July 16th, 2025. I can't think of a better way to celebrate my favorite era of SpongeBob SquarePants than talking about it on the day that it turns a decade old. Oh yeah, I bet that got your attention, didn't it? Grab my hand, and let's dive in, head first. A new beginning, a fresh start, a chance for this beloved icon to prove himself to the world all over again. And with the way I've built up this era as the second coming of Christ, I'd say he's definitely proved himself tenfold. The thing that impresses me the most about Lost in Bikini Bottom is how it immediately feels like the show has found its second groove. It is extraordinarily rare for a very long-running show like SpongeBob to catch any kind of second wind, let alone one as strong as this. The only other example I can think of off the top of my head, one that's purely only connected to a show's main run and isn't a reboot or a sequel series, are the 30s seasons of The Simpsons based off of the popular word of mouth I've heard. In my mind, I've always seen this episode as sort of a second pilot for SpongeBob. The story, being about SpongeBob getting lost in an unfamiliar section of Bikini Bottom while trying to take a shortcut to work, is refreshingly simple. The only major main characters that we see are SpongeBob, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Patrick. Even the way the characters are drawn, SpongeBob especially, feels like they were ripped straight out of Season 1 for this singular episode. And with Vincent Waller and Mark Ceccarelli now at the captain's wheel, the most noticeable change right off the bat is the laser focus on the visuals. So many scenes here just have establishing shots that serve no greater purpose than to immerse you into this underwater setting. We'll see how the series will continue to evolve its focus on visual storytelling next season, but overall, this is a very good second first impression. 8 out of 10. Number 25 on the list. Lost in Bikini Bottom may not be the most exciting episode, the most stylish episode, or even the funniest episode, but it is exceedingly likable. I didn't rate it the highest, but like Help Wanted, it's an episode I love a lot, purely for what it represents. Now, when it comes to the crew shakeup, there's a stupid amount of people I'm going to have to introduce, mainly because Season 9B is the biggest roulette for this show's crew we've seen yet. So many people who will just come in, work on 1 or 2 episodes, and then never be heard from again. For now, let's focus on the guys who brought this episode to life. Jack Pendarvis, a guy who was most notable for his work on the Adventure Time franchise, working on the main show, the Distant Lands specials, and the Fiona and Cake series. He'll be one of the main writers throughout all of 9B. Bob Camp, a heavy hitter from Ren and Stimpy, who has written, storyboarded, and directed many episodes from that classic. In SpongeBob, he storyboards 2 episodes in 9B and directs 1 episode in Season 12, but he's actually way more involved with the spin-offs, the Patrick Star Show especially. And last but not least, a returning crew member who last worked on Season 4, Sherm Cohen. In between his time on SpongeBob, he worked on shows such as Phineas and Ferb and Kick Buttowski. To this very day, Sherm is still working on the show as one of the main directors of the post-sequel era. Whew! Well, that was a mouthful just for the very first episode. Don't worry, it's only going to get better.
But next time, wait until I say, put her into gear.
You missed one.
In a very similar vein to early Season 1, I'm going to have to reintroduce a lot of things as we zip past this beginning chunk. We have the first episode to be rough storyboarded by Fred Osmond, a name I recognize as the storyboard artist for some early Uncle Grandpa episodes. He continues to work on SpongeBob as one of the main board guys even today. He definitely makes a wild first impression here with some of the expressions he draws. But I just like the way his art style looks as a whole. He doesn't have my favorite style out of the mainstay rough board artists of this era, but his drawings are still uniquely funny and very unhinged. Tutor Sauce is also the first Mr. Krabs story of this era, and it instantly sets the standard. I don't want to sound like a broken record again, you all know how mixed I am on the characterization of this tyrant over the past few seasons. But they damn near completely do a 180 and revert SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs' dynamic back to the father and son relationship they had in Season 1. Krabs is still as cartoonishly greedy and scheming as ever, but they do a much better job at keeping him light and fun. Glad I can fully like Mr. Krabs again without wanting to rip his eye stalks off and feed them to a wood chipper. Tutor Sauce is a prime example at strutting something that this era is unnaturally gifted at, and those are the mind-bendingly fast, gag-driven episodes. Driven is right! The pacing here is so fast that it outspeeds the boats they're driving! The setup? Mr. Krabs tries to teach SpongeBob how to drive. The execution? How many ways can we make this piss-colored brick cause thousands of dollars of property damage? It's so airtight and funny. No scene lingers on for too long. They shove a joke in your face, and if you didn't like it, there's 5 more coming at record speed. My #1 favorite type of comedy. This is an approach to joke telling that the Vincent and Mark era thrives in. I can't wait to rave about more of them. 9 out of 10, number 1. Number 20. I'm just making wacky noises. Some more firsts. Writer Kyle McCulloch returns as one of the main script guys for 9B. I say returns because he was initially a one-off who helped write Season 4's Skill Crane, as well as writing the really good opening song from Truth or Square. He's the aforementioned South Park guy that Paul Tibbett was referring to earlier. And not to be outdone, we also have Dave Cunningham's debut as a director. He's been a storyboard artist on SpongeBob since Season 4, but it seems he finally got that juicy promotion. Mainly because the crew was so impressed with his work on the second movie. Like Sherm, he's still a director on the show even in the present day, where he continues to kick ass and take names. Being Squidward's first major role of this era, they dare to acknowledge something that the show seldom does. Squidward is kind of a loser. Or in nicer terms, Squidward doesn't have any friends. This episode is about examining that and seeing what funny scenarios they can get out of it. I do like this one, but the pacing is kind of out of whack. Squidward spends the runtime bonding with 2 different people, the mailman and Larry the Lobster. Both relationships feel underdeveloped, and I would have gone for either a quick montage of Squidward trying to make several friends, or Squidward trying to bond with one singular character. As it stands, this one feels a little structurally unsound. Squid Plus One, or Squid Plus One for you fancy types, is an entertaining, character-driven story that has some clunky pacing, but basically charms in every other area, including the twist ending. Oh my god. It's 1,000 times better than whatever shit-fuck New Fish in Town was trying to be. 6 plus 1 out of 10. Number 33 plus 1 on my ranking. Something about this era that I cannot get enough of is its greater focus on SpongeBob's world building and consistency. Within reason, it's still an episodic comedy after all. Characters such as Bubble Bass, Old Man Jenkins, Old Man Walker, and Fred will be reintroduced and redefined in these upcoming seasons, and I love that consistency a lot. The one exception to this is the mailman character. They bothered to give him a unique voice, personality, and name here, and then never stuck with it again. When's Norton's time? When's Norton's time to shine?
Okay, quick survey. Are you busy or just busy?
What's busy?
No, don't tell me. Don't tell me anything. Don't even tell me what you're doing here.
I found a jump rope.
I said not to tell me!
By the time this video is over, the word first isn't even going to sound like a real word anymore. Shimmying from one solo character story to another, we have Patrick's first journey into the show's new frontier. And with no further build-up, I must say, Patrick is a great character again. I feel like even the crew themselves knew that Patrick's characterization was one of the biggest course corrections they had to make if the show was going to improve. They dial back almost all of his negative characteristics that people didn't like, that were popping up as early as Season 2, and he's so much better off for it. He's pretty much back to being the dumb, chill, well-meaning best friend, with the only key difference being that he's more hyperactive now, but I don't mind that at all. If you asked me to name the biggest singular aspect that improved in the transition between the post-movie era and the post-sequel era, it would be Patrick. Though another possible answer to that question would be, without a doubt, how the series is a lot more willing to push SpongeBob to the sidelines for a while and give other characters their own solo adventures. The executive treatment follows Patrick's quest to get a sandwich, but he accidentally gets mistaken for a businessman, which prolongs his taste buds from experiencing the joy they so crave. Yep, that's all Patrick wants here. A sandwich. I wish I could be that simple-minded. I adore how the business that Patrick infiltrates is as intentionally vague as possible, purely so they could pack in as many business-related gags as they could. Suits, pie charts, copy machines, executives here who are smarter than most business executives in real life, and the big bad boss himself. This Groucho Marx imitator eel guy is both comedic and threatening at the same time, which leads to a lot more dimension with his interactions with Patrick. He's a really good character. This era has a lot of my favorite Patrick episodes of the entire show, and the executive treatment really gets down to business and lays out the blueprints as to why. 9 out of 10, number 19 on my meaningless chart. Patrick is back and is more prominent to this franchise than ever. The main SpongeBob character who has potentially had the most amount of growth. And we're so proud of him. Nice of Mr. Krabs to invite us over for a picnic, gay Squidward? I hope he made lots of soufflés. Squidward, look! It's from Plankton.
Dear pesky crusters, the Chumbots and I have taken over the company picnic. Mr. Krabs is now a permanent guest at one of my 7 carnival rides. I dare you to find him if you can.
We gotta find Mr. Krabs! And you gotta go away.
If you need instructions on how to get through the company picnic, check out the enclosed transcript.
Guys, I think we have chumpany. Even though I'm going to glaze the ever-loving crap out of this era, that doesn't mean I think it's 100% completely perfect all the time. There's only one major overarching problem I have with the era, but we'll get to that at a later date. For now, to satisfy you weirdos out there who feed off of negativity, here's the first out of very few Vincent and Mark era SpongeBob episodes that I outright dislike. Company Picnic. I could describe why I dislike this one in 2 sentences, but in the interest of having this review be over a minute long, I'll elaborate. The main culprit here is that I believe the dueling picnics aspect of the episode is really undercooked. They really could have played up the red and white shaded war between Plankton and Krabs and escalate the situation to a ludicrous degree. And if you want a more grounded conflict amongst all the chaos, maybe SpongeBob could tear himself apart over which picnic he should join. You can keep Squidward immediately abandoning ship and making a break for Plankton's picnic, though. That's pretty funny. The way they actually do it with Mr. Krabs just giving up, going to Plankton's picnic at the drop of a hat, and near instantaneously wanting to work for Plankton just feels really forced. And not to scrutinize or anything, but the twist is so dumb. That's not even how holograms. This doesn't even add anything other than questions to my already nitpicking brain. Company Picnic is pretty mediocre, below average, and a huge letdown as Plankton's earliest post-sequel episode. 4 out of 10, number 41 on my list. I'll give them this. When an episode from this era sucks, it at least sucks in ways that are interesting to talk about. That's more than I can say for a lot of post-movie. Even then, there's still a whole picnic basket's worth of highlights worth mentioning. Up to this point, Jellyfish Fields has never looked better. Showing an actual corpse on screen with its entrails spilling out is fire. This is Lynn Naylor's first out of a few 9B episodes as a storyboard artist. And SpongeBob's slow motion bit here is the best part of this whole thing.
Sammy, look out! There's a candy pen headed straight for your eye due to my act of swatting it away without first considering the trajectory. Oh, I wish I could get my words out faster, but everything's in slow motion.
If Chumpany Picnic is the earliest episode in 9B that I don't like, then Pull Up a Barrel is the earliest episode in 9B that I think is a 10 out of 10. Number 7 on the ranking while we're on the subject. If you want a sneak peek as to how much more passionate I'm about to become over the average episode in this era, then don't move from your barrel-shaped seat. Mr. Krabs, out of all of Stephen Hillenburg's silly little creatures, is by far the most fleshed out character. He's a Navy man, he's a pirate, he's a businessman, he's a father, he's ex-best friends with the show's main antagonist, and he has the mouth of a motherfucking sailor. Any promise of learning more about this badass's past is going to make me lean towards my screen mere inches away. Please be good. 4th SpongeBob movie. So even if it's something as meaningless as Mr. Krabs and his fellow Navy crewmates delivering sunscreen to some flopping fish, I'm still instantly hooked. The episode itself is so atmospheric and exciting, especially with the pirate battle at the end. It's a cannonball-sized blast. And with the POV here being SpongeBob's imagination, that allows the writers to really play fast and loose with the roles of the characters that we already know. I guess that would explain why Sandy is just miraculously able to breathe underwater now. On a tangentially related thought, I wonder if the ending here is supposed to be poking fun at the Pearl's mom theory. For context, one of Stephen Hillenburg's most set-in-stone rules for the show is that we are never allowed to see Pearl's mother. Mr. Krabs is the biological father of Pearl, and that is that. It's a cartoon. It can do whatever it wants. So the ending punchline of Mr. Krabs potentially getting together with a female pirate captain could be the biggest lead we will ever have to this unsolvable mystery. Krabs and SpongeBob literally wink and nudge Squidward about it, so I see you, you scurvy bastards. This would have easily been in my top 5 for the season if it was a 22-minute special, but it's still amazing as is. So many more 10 out of 10s to come, and we just started the second half of the season. Brace for impact.
Excuse me, ma'am, but we've had some complaints.
No thank you, please.
Meme. Very, very interessante choice on the behalf of Mr. Hillenburg to make SpongeBob a cat person. I suppose it makes sense. SpongeBob is a very energetic and hyperactive character, while cats are usually the complete opposite. Now take that concept, multiply the snails by 1,000, give Squidward a snail allergy that will never ever be acknowledged again, have Bob Barker as a guest star, and throw in a Hunchback of Notre Dame reference, because why not? And you've got Sanctuary. I've seen several comparisons to Sentimental Sponge be thrown this episode's way, and ironically enough, I think this one does a better job at accomplishing what that one was going for. I like Sentimental Sponge, but my biggest criticism with it was that it didn't feel like it was pushing its premise far enough. In Sanctuary, though, they play up SpongeBob's descent into madness after becoming a crazy snail lady a lot more, as well as having more scenes showing just how far gone SpongeBob has become, with his entire pineapple overflowing with mollusks. They took the idea of SpongeBob's endless love of snails, and SpongeBob hoarding a lot of something in his house, and pushed it to its logical extreme. If they went an itsy bit darker with the execution and made this more of a horror episode, this would have shot up from great to one of my favorites of the entire season. Crazy cat people are nutso, y'all. I get that sometimes animals can be better friends than people, but there's gotta be a limit, right? High 8 out of 10, number 22 on the list.
That's a pretty good thing I thought of, huh?
I'll call you Donnie.
Heh, that's a good surreal gag. Who even plays that snail anyways? Oh hey, Danny Michaeli, how about that? Wait a minute, his first name is supposed to be pronounced like Donnie? Why didn't anybody tell me? Season 9B is quite fascinating because it's a combination of episode concepts that were thought of before the second movie and after the second movie. What's Eating Patrick is the first episode I've discussed from 9B today to be fully original to this new era. I will continue to praise many things about future seasons to come, but if I had to pick one singular aspect from this new reincarnation of the show that I feel it does best, it's the creativity, in every meaning of the word. And the first fully original episode premise in the post-sequel era being about a Krabby Patty eating contest that Patrick participates in is a feast for the soul. One of the closest times a SpongeBob episode has ever gotten to a sporting event, too. If you still had any doubts about Patrick's characterization after my review of the executive treatment, just know that the only reason why he even decides to go through with this contest in the first place is to make a widow boy with their hurt foot happy. Biggest character glow up in all of fiction? Maybe. This story could not have gone to a better character other than Patrick. It's so specific to him, and yet another standout role of his. When it comes to feast or famine, this fat ass will dig up his inner Kirby just to get an extra bite. Yo, he just like me for real! And if you just so happen to be hungry for another SpongeBob holiday episode that isn't Halloween or Christmas, then girl, do I got good news for all of you Founders Day fans out there. Very solid Patrick episode, very creative story, very strong fatmosphere, very good! It's just very good! 9 out of 10, number 18 on my ranking. Ooh, a board game! I want to play! 3. 1, 2, 3. And I get the YouTube poop space. You know what that means?
I don't get it. What's an audit?
Dad, I want some ice cream!
Let's go, rock, paper,
Toasted.
Squidward, I got it. Whose dick is longer? You...
Minecraft. You must be famished. This entire game is butter. I don't know how you're supposed to roll a 6.
You know Candyland. You remember Monopoly. You tried to forget Operation Shrek, but here comes the board game to end all board games. Patrick! The game. Ages 6 and under may cause brain damage. I am completely married to the idea of board game episodes of cartoons, as they can embody the best of both worlds. They could be some of the sliciest of lifeiest concepts you could get out of a show, or they could be,
You have 10 seconds to live!
Patrick the game rolls the dice and lands directly in the middle of those two spaces. Son of a bitch! Normally, I'm all for compromise, but I take issue with how this episode can't make up its mind on what style of comedy it wants to go for. It's not laid back enough to feel cozy, but it's also not wacky enough to feel like life or death. Shout out to Sandra for joining these three stooges for once, though. She adds a really fun wrinkle to their usual trio dynamic. I wish they would include her as part of the team more often. Also, first of many post-sequel episodes to include the ever-so-odious cartoon light bulb gag! An absolute classic that I will never get enough of. Suck my gigantic balls, certain people in the SpongeBob community! Patrick the Game is the embodiment of, yeah, it's aight. Cool concept, fun character interactions, but a bit too light on substance, even for me. 6 out of 10. Number 34 on my list. I didn't even know this until, like, after I had already written the script for this segment, but apparently Patrick the Game is a huge fan favorite for season 9, so I'm really sorry. I want to love this episode so bad, you have no idea. If you want my personal recommendation for some top-tier board game episodes of TV shows, might I recommend The Amazing World of Gumball's take on it? Both of them. One of them makes Jumanji look like an episode of Blue's Clues, and the other makes my heart swell up so much that it's become a medical condition. Oh, and in case you're wondering, Bill Fagerbakke himself considers Patrick to be a gamer.
Patrick is a gamer. Patrick is definitely a gamer.
Do with that information what you will, because I'm personally going to make some very funny headcanons out of it. And now, making his grand return to SpongeBob SquarePants after over a decade of absence, it's the man, the myth, the biggest wackadoo cartoonist around, Kaz! During the time when he vanished from SpongeBob, Kaz worked on shows like Camp Lazlo and Phineas and Ferb. But now that he's here for good. And the instant he comes back, he proves that he's the man who had involvement in episodes like Nasty Patty, Wet Painters, Chocolate with Nuts, and I Had an Accident. That typewriter of his hasn't aged a single day. The Sewers of Bikini Bottom resurrects a slice of SpongeBob and Squidward's dynamic that was long thought to be dead. The episodes where they're working towards a common goal and set off on an adventure together. Post-sequel loves these types of stories, and from here on out, the crew starts to do them much more frequently. And with how much people, myself included, suck off pizza delivery, a return to this flavor of sponge and octopus was bound to happen sooner or later. With the location colloquially known for being where everyone's dookie lives, you would not think they would cook so hard with this type of setting. But this environment they've crafted is wonderfully ambient, and the background art just pops. Who knew that a location as sludgy and slimy as a sewer could look so clean? Also, being one of the only 11-minute SpongeBob episodes to have a B-plot, I guess Kaz still had some Phineas and Ferb stuck on the bottom of his shoe, we shift our gaze to the Krusty Krab Stadium to see what Mr. Krabs and new character Charlton Hawkfish are up to. The latter is voiced by special guest star Jeff Bennett. Goodness, you guys already had me sold with Kaz's return, a SpongeBob and Squidward adventure, and a delightfully atmospheric setting. But now you bring in one of my favorite voice actors of all time to voice one of my favorite one-off characters of the entire season? I am going to be punch drunk with peak fiction by the end of this. Charlton Hawkfish is so hilariously, overly serious, and absolutely swipes every scene he's in. They even managed to make the Krabby Patty secret formula a major MacGuffin here, and not feel the need to include Plankton. Jeez, maybe this is one of the few times where it's a good thing that someone's script got flushed down the toilet. I can only imagine how much worse this episode would have been if it was in 9A. The Sewers of Bikini Bottom is a 10 out of 10. Number 3 on the sewer slide. This was my top pick for all of Season 9 before this rewatch, but 2 other episodes managed to spike the amount of serotonin in my brain even more. Would you believe me if I told you that there are several other SpongeBob and Squidward episodes to come that are just as great, if not better than this? Let's switch over editing to ISBSP now, before I get flushed away like a dead goldfish. People in Britain call this one Sponge Robert Lengthy Trousers.
We fucking don't.
I don't know what it is with Nickelodeon and treating SpongeBob changing his clothes as some life-altering event, as this is another Season 9 episode that got very heavily marketed for some reason. I change my pants all the time, yet you never see me getting any sloppy toppy for it. If the overall concept of SpongeBob's life gets flipped on its head at the slightest alteration of his wardrobe sounds familiar, then good on you for being one of the 10 people who remembers to SquarePants or not to SquarePants. And I haven't the foggiest idea if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I happen to be one of those 10. SpongeBob LongPants is a rare case of an episode from this era that I don't feel very passionately about at all, even compared to ones that I think are outright bad. In the argument in favor of to SquarePants or not to, I can at least say that that one has a pinch of the slow, dry Season 6 charm that I like. Maybe this would have been more of a standout if they actually decided to pull up their big boy pants and make it a 22-minute special with higher stakes. They even feel it necessary to pad out the runtime towards the end by adding a very last-minute conflict. Jeff Bennett also guest stars again, except this time he gets to play a generic, rich, snobby character who's not even important enough to have a name. Oh! How could you make a Jeff Bennett role feel so uninspired? 5 out of 10, number 38 on the ranking. If I was giving Season 9B its own Midword episode, this would be a strong contender, though at least I can point out more interesting things here than the average Midword. The joke with Mrs. Puff is pretty good, the table is the greatest cinematic achievement in the history of film, and Mr. Krabs going with the other characters to see the new Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy reboot is... let's just call that foreshadowing for next time. In a half season brimming with diamond-studded slacks, this one just feels like getting pantsed in public by comparison.
Oh, I can't believe I'm allowed to lift these really heavy pieces of metal for free!
Building onto the world-building thing I mentioned back in Squid Plus One, we have another one of Season 9's permanent status quo changes. You know Larry the Lobster? The guy who always smells like a sweaty jockstrap and has had a grand total of 3 major appearances across the entire series so far? Well, from this day forth, he is the proud owner of his own gym. I guess the writing team decided to choose both Brain and Brawn that day, because this is honestly such a genius way to further incorporate a character who, while definitely iconic, was relatively unimportant and didn't have a lot to do. Larry's gym is a location that we'll see numerous times across several episodes, and its grand opening day is a very strong start. I admittedly need to start working out more consistently myself. My lack of muscle mass would make even a fucking piece of paper cry. If episodes such as Muscle Bob Buff Pants or No Weenies Allowed happen to be some of your favorites, then boy do I have some news that is certain to boost your testosterone! Off the top of my head, Larry's Gym is the only episode outside of the first 3 seasons to acknowledge that SpongeBob is extremely cartoonishly weak. Outside of the debut of a permanent new locale, The very fun role reversal between SpongeBob and Larry does the other half of the heavy lifting here. I personally know people who have a thing for SpongeBob as is, but I can only imagine that their thirst levels went through the goddamn roof when he turns into this monstrosity. Personally, I have more of a hard-on for the return of the generic Bikini Bottom groceries! Yes! Woohoo!
Honey, he did it!
Larry's gym is a highlight of Season 9. Not just for finally cementing a role for Larry in the show, but a lot of the comedic bits here definitely exercise my funny bone. 9 out of 10, number 13 on the list. According to storyboard artist Adam Polowian, there was a deleted scene from this episode where Larry smashes a glass cup inside of a guy's mouth. But I guess standards and practices didn't like that, because they don't like broken glass. What? So this crosses the line, yet Larry stabbing another guy clean through the head with a pair of scissors is perfectly okay? Watch, I can break a glass cup inside my mouth and it won't be any more violent than anything the show already does. Why? Why did I think that? Oh, fuck! Oh! Why did I think that was a good idea? Oh, there's blood everywhere! Oh, god damn it! Oh, son of a bitch! Holy shit! Oh!
He died.
I do not care for social experiments, especially those that are framed as pranks. To me, it feels like this content just boils down to watching people be dick faces to each other, and it's not what I look for in entertainment. Planet Earth already kind of sucks as is, and I don't need to be reminded of that by watching some rich philanthropist putting random people through mental torture with the promise of jingling a stack of 100s in their face. Now, watching a cartoon character do it on the other hand, if they want to approach writing Sandy from a scientific side, then having her perform social experiments on the fish around her to see how they behave is a really good way to do it, especially with this being her first main character role in the Vincent and Mark era. But man, oh man, the fishbowl sure does ruffle my feathers. From what I can tell, I think this is 9B's most infamous episode, and for very damn good reason. All of this talk about post-sequel not being boring and then, oops, all sand. The real social experiment here is trying to piece together why they thought it would be a good idea to regress Patrick's character back a couple seasons. To be totally fair though, Patrick here is light years better than a lot of his infamous appearances in seasons 7, 8, and 9A, because by the end he at least realizes he was being a douche and feels bad about it. An idea as broad and brimming with potential as social experiments, and all you could muster was counting sand and arguing over bowl sizes? Come on! You're better than that. Also, the stupid-ass running gag of Squidward continuously missing out on ice cream makes me scream. This did not need to be here. 3 out of 10, number 45 on my ranking. The only reason why the fishbowl stands out in my mind at all is because this is the first episode to have John Trabick as the rough storyboard artist. Before SpongeBob, he worked on the Nicktoon Pig Goat Banana Cricket. Then during SpongeBob, he would work from now up until early season 13. And then after SpongeBob, he would go on to create his own Nicktoon, Middlemost Post, which I stand by being the most underrated Nicktoon of all time. John Trabick is this era's wackiest and zaniest asset, and his art style looks like it was fueled by comic books and Newgrounds animators. I cannot get enough of it.
Eureka!
If there's any emotion that I personally never under any circumstance associate with SpongeBob SquarePants, it's sadness and depression. And I don't mean that in the sense that the characters should never feel any kind of sadness or anything, but it's not really what I come to SpongeBob for, you know? I watch SpongeBob to laugh and have a good time, and any emotional investment I feel to what's going on, positive or negative, is just a sweet bonus. If I want to be emotionally challenged, I'll watch something else. Whenever the show tends to dwell on these vibes for too long, it ends up feeling out of place, which is why Have You Seen the Snail, while a good episode, isn't one of my favorites. So if an episode actually leaves me feeling bummed out by the end, it's going to be a special kind of unpleasant. Getting my thoughts on the table right away, Married to Money is my least favorite episode in all of 9B, and is a bottom 5 shoo-in for this era of SpongeBob. 2 out of 10, number 46 on my list. I swear on my life that Plankton has heaps of great episodes during Vincent and Mark's years. It just so happens that both episodes he's had a major role in so far haven't been very good. Except here, I think the role that Plankton plays is an outright detriment to the story. Like, of course, there's 0 point in getting invested in this love story between Mr. Krabs and Kashina, since anyone with 2 brain cells to rub together knows exactly how everything is going to play out beat for beat. At least in the episodes where Plankton plays dress up as other established characters, they aren't teasing the audience with the possibility of a new character. How do you expect me to care about scenes like Mr. Krabs wanting to find love, or Kashina bonding with Pearl, if we know it's all nothing more than just Sheldon's thinly veiled attempt to hide his bisexuality? If they still wanted this to be a Plankton-centric plot, then surely it'd make a lot more sense to make Kashina her own character, right? Maybe have her be remote-controlled by Plankton, but then she could actually fall for Mr. Krabs at the end, and betray Plankton? Then you'd be killing 2 stones with 1 birdly. It's not even as if Mr. Krabs likes Kashina for literally any other reason than she looks like capitalism. Regardless, the main reason why Married to Money is on my very, very small personal post-sequel hit list is because of the conclusion. Plankton gets found out and Krabs gets all mad. Yak, yak, yak. I'm sure you totally didn't see that one coming. Oh my god. Except, no. Instead of getting angry, Mr. Krabs becomes melancholic, lamenting on how he'll never find love and how he'll be lonely for the rest of his life, eventually getting to the point of bawling his eyes out. And Plankton just completely dismisses the entire thing and makes yet another one-dimensional remark about the formula before fleeing the scene. Look, I'm not expecting the villain of all characters to be a perfect angel or anything, but to me this feels a little too callous even for Plankton. I feel like he would at least have some sympathy for Krabs, especially since he's married himself. This is a complete and utter downer ending that I just do not vibe with in the slightest. One character was extremely shallow, while the other was just fake from the start. I feel like I'm watching a high school drama. At least Mr. Krabs would get his happy ending in Season 10 onwards, so there's that. Of all the things they could have referenced in the Plankton movie. Oh man. Oh yeah, speaking of references, this is the episode that brings back the sea bears, and makes them permanent mainstays in SpongeBob's ecosystem. Very much appreciated, by the way. The fishbowl may be an uninteresting slog, but Married to Money is one of the few things I find to be worse than boring. It's just a bummer. Would anyone argue with me if I said that this and the fishbowl are the worst episode pairing in the post-sequel era? And now, for some complete and total opposition. If you ever need a surefire method to chase those blues away, then Mall Girl Pearl is just the medicine you need. Yeah, go on, get out of here! You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, you squatters! The sewers of Bikini Bottom may have been my previous champion of Season 9, but nothing could have prepared me for how deeply this one touched me on an emotional level. In the past, I used to feel that, in relation to the other post-sequel seasons, my favorite episodes in 9B weren't ones that I felt as passionate about by comparison. That is, until I took the escalator ride of my life and found out that this one is a gem to end all gems. As if I haven't been gassing up all of Pearl's episodes already, this is probably the best of them all. There is a documented history of the SpongeBob crew saying that this is a cartoon meant to be enjoyed by all ages. I mean, duh, why else would I be doing this? I'm pretty sure I fall under all ages. But Mall Girl Pearl in particular is one of the episodes that I firmly believe has universal appeal. Kids will enjoy it on the simple basis that it's more SpongeBob. Teenagers can relate to the struggle of applying for their very first job. And adults can relish in the nostalgia of the previously mentioned first job, as well as appreciating the artistry of a cartoon, and even the guest stars. Not gonna lie, I'm trying my hardest to rack my brain for any info, but I don't think I've ever heard of Aubrey Plaza before this. Sorry. But seeing the late Betty White playing a sweet old lady that Pearl bonds with is serotonin overload. If Pearl is supposed to be the stereotypical spoiled teenage girl cliche that runs rampant in media, then why is she having an actually really compelling character arc of learning to appreciate elderly people, while also realizing that youth is a precious resource and not to grow up too fast? Doesn't sound like a one-dimensional character to me. Beatrice is a wonderful character brought to life by a wonderful actress. And despite being nearly a century old when she died, it still feels like Betty White was taken from us too soon. Maybe it's just because I'm a sucker for lovable old lady characters, or maybe she reminds me of my own grandma or my boss at my job, both of whom I cherish dearly. I mean, she was designed after Vincent Waller's grandma, so I assume the vibe was intentional. The moment I realized that Mall Girl Pearl was my favorite episode from SpongeBob's 9th season was the moment I noticed that it was the episode that got the strongest, positive, visceral, emotional reaction out of me. It's just such a sweet and comfy episode, and Pearl has no right being this much of a likable character. Item number 1 in Season 9's shopping bag. That's not even getting into all of the other things that I love outside of the main arc. The mall setting is super cozy, and one that's littered with background Easter eggs for longtime SpongeBob fanatics to spot. This is one of 2 episodes to be written by freelance 9B writer Claire O. Kane, so the female perspective on things helps make it feel more authentic. And, taking the idea that Larry's Gym started and running with it, this is SpongeBob's smallest role in an episode of the series up to this point. Though, as we'll soon see, they can always go smaller. As much as I idolize the more wacky, cartoony, off-the-wall direction the show will very soon go in, it's always a nice relaxer to get more genuine and down-to-earth episodes like this every once in a while. I cherish this silly little cartoon about a talking sea sponge and his underwater friends more than I reasonably should, and episodes like this are exactly why. Now, can somebody please come pick me up and take me home? I've been left at the mall's Lost and Found for hours and nobody has claimed me yet. Aw yeah, now we've just outright struck a peak streak of episodes. Get used to this, it's going to happen a lot from here on out. 2 thumbs down makes its case clear in an instant. If we're going to convince people that SpongeBob is worth keeping around and worth transcending generations of people, we're going to have to stop pussy thumbing around and give him the goods. SpongeBob's most admirable trait as a character is his infinite optimism for everything around him, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant. And what's something physical that we can use to represent that optimism and positive attitude? Here, pull my thumb! Oh. I forgot to put on my fake thumb for that. It was supposed to be a thumbs up. Earlier when I mentioned that Season 9B was the closest the show has ever gotten to feeling like the first 3 seasons again, episodes like this are what I'm alluding to. Every single character here is written to pitch perfection, as this is some of the most likable the entire cast has ever been. Patrick, Sandy, Squidward, and Krabs all have standout moments here. I'm a huge fan of the peanut butter scene.
Sandy, come back! I need you to help me open this jar of peanut butter.
But SpongeBob especially is emblematic of just how confident the show is in itself again. You could argue all you want about whether 2 thumbs down is an intentional metaphor for the series getting its groove back or not. It's not my place to say. It's easily the definitive episode about SpongeBob injuring his thumbs, though. The splinter was found dead in a ditch. And you know that one quote-unquote relatable meme that unfunny millennials throw around like it's going out of style? This stupid-ass one? Gee, wow, I had no idea. I guess Squidward being a self-centered asshole is relatable. If you're a miserable loser, replace those images of Squidward with SpongeBob, however, and that's a thumbprint of a different shape. When SpongeBob hits lows, they're really low, but his ability to completely rebound is a respectable quality all its own, culminating in the most epic thumb war you've ever seen as the 3rd act climax. 2 thumbs down might just be the most well-rounded episode of this entire season. Everything you'd ever want out of a great classic-feeling SpongeBob episode is front and center. The character writing is top of the line. The jokes have that timeless SpongeBob touch to them. There's a really good song towards the middle of this that has some gorgeous background art. This is SpongeBob SquarePants. Whether you like it or not, he's going to be sticking around for a very long time, and he'll continue to change and evolve. But we can also relish in the moments where he's able to whisk us back to our childhoods and let us relive the magic of Bikini Bottom with a modern twist. What's your way of brightening someone's day? Your very own thumbs up, if you will. Love this animal. The Shart. Gee, I wonder what Luke decided to base this particular new avatar still off of. In an interview with Casey Alexander, he revealed that both he and Zeus Service were the ones who originally worked on Sharks vs. Pods during Season 9A, but the original version of that episode never came to be. And judging off of the beta designs of the Sharks that we now have, maybe it's for the best that this stays lost media. The finalized version of the episode that we ended up getting still follows a very similar structure to its older vision, with SpongeBob joining a gang of street sharks. Except now, the sharks have a lot more cartoony and appealing designs, and they're all played by special guest stars. Specifically the guys from Happy Days, including the Fonz. Yeah, thanks for the play-by-play, Captain Fuck. Now move over and make some room for the dance party ending! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! And what a dance party ending it is. You wanna know why these scenes look like visual sex? It's because they're the only scenes in the entire show, to my knowledge, to be animated in-house, specifically by cartoonist David Gemmell. Guess that explains why this is some of the most buttery smooth animation the series has ever seen. Sharks vs. Pods is such a stylish episode. I cannot get enough of the stealthy, greasy mood this one has. Also, eat squid shit defense! This is how you do a characters who seem threatening are not actually threatening at all twist. Hey yo, 10 out of 10, number 8 on the rankings. I do not, however, approve of Gary's meow in this one being used as an MLG air horn sound effect in the advertisements, though.
Deal with it.
That is at least 27 different flavors of curse. Sharts vs. Poos is also another in a startling amount of 9B episodes, where a crew member will come in, work on 1 or 2 episodes, and then dip. Solomon Giorgio is the writer for this one, and from what I've researched, I've got this little nugget of info from the SpongeBob wiki, by the way, so take this with a heaping pound of salt. This guy is openly gay. That makes Sharks vs. Pods the first and only SpongeBob episode up to this point to be written by a gay man. Hell yeah! More gay and LGBTQ people in general should work in animation, I think. Cloning episodes are everywhere! If you're a fan of animation, it's likely you can't walk 5 feet in front of you without one of these popping up. They're like the cartoon stock plot. But like with every one of these, it's all dependent on how it's executed. And I admittedly have a soft spot for this stock plot. So when you have the most successful and popular cartoon of this generation going on for as long as it has, it only makes sense that he would occasionally copy everyone else. Finally, the first good post-sequel Plankton episode. Except good might be underselling it a bit, because CopyBob DittoPants is a personal favorite of mine. In a vast sea of cloning episodes, this one still feels like it's able to stand out, as it doesn't duplicate the whole "which clone is the real one" shtick that most other shows would do. I remember many a year ago, this was the first brand new SpongeBob episode I heard about after I stopped thinking about the show for quite a while, and I never ended up actually watching it until quite a bit after the fact. Many replicated viewings later, and I'm now ready to copy-paste my thoughts from brain to script. Alright, Luke, your shift is over. Why don't you go see what's in the fridge? I'll take it from here. Oh hey, thanks, Luke. I hope we have leftover spaghetti, because I am starving. CopyBob DittoPants is just a funny-ass episode, man. Squidward and Plankton's reactions to all of the bedlam that is unleashing before their very eyes is always priceless, but need I remind you all that this episode also features on-screen character death? The other SpongeBobs may have just been clones, but they were living, breathing creatures who could be influenced by others. I guess we can add me too to the list of SpongeBob characters who have canonically died and are never coming back, just like Squilvia. Though my #1 favorite comedic bit in this entire thing isn't even that pronounced or in your face or anything. It's this frame of this very puzzled and confused guy looking on as a whole blitzkrieg of Bobs infiltrate the Krusty Krab. I don't know what it is about it, but this scene takes me out every single time. This rivals Squidward falling off a cliff with a smile on his face from Pineapple Fever as my favorite out-of-context SpongeBob screenshot. My reasons for loving this one are very bitch basic, I'm aware, but sometimes the right combination of a premise you like and jokes you like just hits you in the right way. Also, this was one of Dave Cunningham's favorite episodes to direct too. And before anyone else pointed out, yes, Gravity Falls did the idea of a cloning copy machine first. Plankton just blatantly stole the idea for himself. The little nudnik. 10 out of 10. #5 on the list. And now to complete the rule of threes. That's more like it. sold! Or as it's known in Albania, you shit! Look it up, I am not kidding. Is yet another episode that proves my point of Season 9B harkening back to the show's early days. The story and the way the characters interact with each other here feels like it was yoinked straight out of Season 1. And I mean that in the greatest possible way. Think back to episodes like Opposite Day, where Squidward tried to screw with SpongeBob and Patrick, only for Daddy Karma to show up at the end and give him a massive wedgie in his skin-colored pants. Classic is the word of the segment here, and I mean that in both senses of the word, those being old school and timeless. An episode about Sponge and Star thinking that their houses have been sold after seeing a commercial on TV, which prompts Squid to fake being the new people living in their homes to prevent them from coming back, is like prime Season 1 simplicity. They've sold me on the concept, and the laughs they bring with them come free of charge. Stuff like SpongeBob talking in a, hopefully not actually offensive, German accent.
German, hello? Say what?
Or Squidward's face when he purposefully spreads peanut butter on toast as a nice and healthy snack are some of the most memorable moments of the entire season for me. I'm really fond of this one, not just because it's poking and prodding at my nostalgia gland, but it's still able to be uniquely funny all its own. It may have the skeleton of a Steven Hillenburg era episode, but the skin it wears is freshly clean from the laundromat, such as the inclusion of guest star James Arnold Taylor, otherwise better known as Mr. Jonathan Testington himself. Very high 9 out of 10, number 10 on my ranking. I'm not sure if Sold reaches the stratospheric heights of show-defining episodes like Squidville or Idiot Box, but I'd still say it's able to brush elbows with the likes of Squidward the Unfriendly Ghost and Snowball Effect, which is still very high praise. Ah, the good old-fashioned cartoon fortune cookie episodes. They're about as common as phony fortunes, and I predicted that SpongeBob would get one eventually. They're an oldie, but a goodie. Look, here comes my very own fortune cookie now. You will give Layman Fortune an 8 out of 10 and rank it as number 27 on your Season 9 ranking list. Well, who am I to argue with these little confections? On the surface, Layman Fortune may seem like a we've done this before type of plot, as it combines your usual cartoon fortune cookie shenanigans with another Mr. Krabs selling a new food at the Krusty Krab story, and a Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula plot. Miraculously, it all seems to come together pretty well to make a cohesive story. This is an episode where I don't really have any big, important, overarching messages I'd like to relay, but rather all of the notable elements are more scattered and bite-sized. Literally. This is the only episode in all of 9B to be written by Mr. Lawrence before he started writing episodes more consistently again. This is the first episode in the series to show the new CGI version of the Bikini Atoll Island. Plankton threatening to outright kill Mr. Krabs via Zelda CDI Ganon is hilariously dark. Seeing a My Leg gag with a character who's not Fred feels like we're violating one of the 10 commandments. I like that the fortune cookies are not overtly magic, they just seem to always predict the future by sheer happenstance. You know what I mean? Again, bite-sized talking points. It's how we're rolling with this one. Yeah, Plankton gives up here way too easily as a means of resetting the status quo, and the storyline kind of forgets that it's about fortune cookies minus one ending button, but I feel fortunate enough to call this another treat of an episode in a half season that's full of them. If you're looking for something more filling, though, why not check out the frozen aisles of your local grocery store, where Clue, our final editor of the day, is waiting for us. Amongst all the laughs and all of the crash outs we've had today, all of the good episodes, the bad episodes, and all of the ones in between that I've talked about, here's a moment I would like to just slow down a bit. Take a breath or two. This is a good opportunity for me to tell you guys a story, to bare my heart and soul, if you will. It's a story about discovering something new and reuniting with something old. And it's one that is very personal to me. This is the tale of how Goodbye Krabby Patty was 50% responsible for getting me back into SpongeBob SquarePants. The year is 2017. The previous year, my family and I had just moved back from Oregon to California to be with my sister, who was pregnant with her first child. I had just started high school, and we were finally able to move into a decent house that had, get this, basic internet and cable TV. Whoa, what a concept! This naturally meant that I was finally able to explore the war zone that was social media for the very first time. Yeah, I was later to the party than most, but better Nate than Lever. Through my mostly unsupervised internet access, I stumbled upon something. It was an advertisement for a new SpongeBob special that I had never heard of before called Goodbye Krabby Patty. With my curiosity piqued due to not having any meaningful interaction with the show in years, I started browsing around social media and saw a decent amount of people discussing this upcoming special, and by extension the most recent season of SpongeBob at the time, being Season 9. At that point, I considered myself interested enough to want to check out the special when it premiered. So I waited a few weeks, maybe even a few months, I honestly don't remember, and on that cold day in February 2017, I sat in front of my sister's TV and waited for a rerun of the first SpongeBob movie to end. 30 minutes of television later, and SpongeBob was officially on my interest radar again. If you recall though, at the beginning of this, I said that Goodbye Krabby Patty was only 50% of the reason I got back into the show. Don't worry, part 2 of the story will be coming next time, and I'll give you one guess as to which episode that applies to. In the meantime, let's talk about the special itself. It's great! With the main story being about Mr. Krabs industrializing Krabby Patties and selling them in grocery stores all over the ocean. But at the center is a very sweet story about SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship. And with this being the 200th half hour in the SpongeBob series, which is a major milestone to be sure, I can only assume that the SpongeBob and Patrick friendship angle was a requirement by Nickelodeon. Considering that the original concept for the 200th episode special during Season 9A's production was an episode called Best Friends for Never, about SpongeBob and Patrick realizing that sponges and starfish naturally aren't supposed to be friends. Yeah, I'm thankful they ended up going with this instead. Part of Goodbye Krabby Patty's excellent advertising campaign even included a series of really fun shorts, with this being the last ever special in the show to get these. Not even the 20th anniversary TV movie got a series of shorts. I hate it here! Outside of Patrick's SmartPants, SpongeBob and Patrick's best buddy bond has never been treated with more sincerity before. Yeah, the Factory Fresh stuff is really intriguing and something the show has never done before. Yeah, John Hamm guest starring is cool. Yeah, they don't forget about the comedy just because the story is more emotionally sincere.
What are you doing with this?
But the heart and soul of this thing is the unbreakable bond between these two pals. It's beautiful. Extremely high, 9 out of 10. Number 9 on the ranking. With this being the final season 9 episode to air on TV, reminder, this season took nearly 5 years to release everything. A new essence of SpongeBob SquarePants is making its way here very fast. We still have a little bit of season 9 left to go though, so let's ride that factory conveyor belt and see what we have left. One very, very minor thing that's barely even worth mentioning, but I'm going to mention it anyways, is that from here on out, they strangely almost always get Sandy's karate glove color wrong. For some reason, literally all it takes is looking at a singular screenshot from Karate Choppers. What are you assholes doing? With season 9 having more guest stars than I do reasons to live, I was bound to gravitate towards some more than others. Like I mentioned back in Kenny the Cat, I don't really pay attention to celebrity culture at all, so I don't even recognize some of these people. I just simply point them out. Call me uncultured all you want, but hey, I've been trying to branch out my media tastes as of late. One guest star whose appearance in Sandy's Nutmare does get me physically stimming though is Eric Bowser. Not necessarily a celebrity, but a voice acting legend who's currently best known for voicing a decent bit of the Looney Tunes cast. Unrelated to anything, but by any means necessary, go watch the Looney Tunes movie The Day the Earth Blew Up. It's spectacular. I don't care if this video is coming out months after it's released in theaters, go watch it anyways. The Shulman character he voices here is a very entertaining one, and the episode that he's bound to is really, really good. Sandy's Nutmare is SpongeBob's better of the two "don't kill the trees, you capitalist bastard" stories. The episode actually presents its message in a fair and digestible way, not being overly preachy or cramming it down your throat. And unlike SpongeBob's Last Stand, they're actually able to come to a compromise by the end that benefits both environmentalism and industrialism. They even relay this message with a scene that has a stunning looking art style change, complete with another odious cartoon light bulb gag. SpongeBob needs more scenes like this sprinkled throughout the show, because wow, this looks pretty. But of course, outside of the very well delivered message, it's just, you know, a very satisfactory and very funny SpongeBob episode, as well as Andrew Goodman's only written one throughout Season 9B. 9 nuts out of 10, number 12 on the list. Like Plankton, it took Sandy a little bit to get her first smash hit of this era, but as we'll soon see, this nutcracker squirrel is the face of some of the greatest outings this period of the show has to offer, and I can't wait to crack those nuts open and suck the juices out.
My god, here we go.
Oh my god.
I should have put it on the bulletin board instead.
Oh my god.
Signed, Handsome Lad 42.
Handsome Lad
42. Oh, my man.
My man.
After a few background cameos and a random appearance in Plankton's Good Eye,
Save me!
Bubble Bass will continue to grace our screens with his presence. Permanently. There's no going back now, and I couldn't be happier. Thanks, Handsome Lad 42. I cannot believe that Bulletin Board is a real SpongeBob SquarePants episode that actually exists. It feels so fucking unreal. It feels so out of the show's wheelhouse to make fun of internet culture, especially considering that usually when technology is featured in the show, it's kept old-fashioned. So let this note be pinned with loudness and proudness for the entire community to see when I say, Bulletin Board is unfathomably incredible! I am going to praise the ever-loving shit out of this one. And just like they say in the episode, you can't censor me just because it's something you don't want to hear. I respect the hell out of this one just for tackling a subject that is so far away from the show's usual range. Because outside of occasional bits in the Patrick Star Show, social media is such a non-existent entity in the SpongeBob universe. For the better, of course, it contributes to the show's timeless quality. But they ended up finding that workaround, and the sheer unstoppable confidence they had in their writing is something to behold. It feels so new and different, yet familiar and recognizable at the same time. They held up that funhouse mirror to show what hyper-specific interactions from internet culture they could spotlight. Stuff like anonymous trolling with the Bikini Bottomites, corporate advertising with Mr. Krabs, misunderstood acts of kindness with Patrick, and taking the piss out of people's art you don't like with Pearl. We even get online content creator drama between Squidward and Bubble Bass. Okay, this is literally just the making fun of Twitter episode. And I hate Twitter! We have reached levels of peak previously thought unobtainable. All we need now is for Bubble Bass to publicly dox Squidward's address. It's not even just the internet metaphors, but the visually creative storytelling too, with the Krusty Krab getting covered head to toe in sticky notes as the plot progresses. Some of which probably have underwater slurs written on them, let's be real. Even still, the fact that they took this very trendy subject matter and transformed it into something that doesn't need to be fully understood to be enjoyed is what impresses me the most. You could be completely internet illiterate and still get enjoyment out of this 11-minute slice of television. Wow! Bulletin Board is so exceptional! Rah! Watch Season 9B of SpongeBob now! 10 out of 10. Number 2 on my ranking. I don't usually say stuff like this because I'm afraid it's going to make me sound like a pretentious twat, but this episode is actually genius. This, and certain parts of the Patrick Star Show, is how you do an internet story in SpongeBob. Don't give me any of that Instaclam crap. And to fill in that last remaining void of untouched internet culture by the episode, here's one more YouTube poop segment for the Season 9 video.
Squidward is gay. Why can't any of these fucking assholes understand I like
I am a registered sex offender. LOL.
I should have put board instead. Signed, they. Type. PS Trooper 40.
LOL.
Eat your man when you eat your man's clothes.
LOL.
LOL. A
Fingers!
board for the
Bombs?
A board for a yearning poop.
LOL.
They get lost in the woods. Again! And just like last season, it was while they were on a road trip to a completely different destination. I never want to see another forest in this show for as long as I live. I'm only half kidding, of course, and if anything, I'd say this is probably the quote-unquote best out of the 4 of these episodes that SpongeBob has done, but even then it's not that much to write home about compared to the episodes it's surrounded by. The main point of interest with Con Castaways are the visuals, as this is a fantastic looking one. Out of every episode in Season 9, this is the one that's the most Season 10 coded. So many really appealing expressions and wild takes from the characters, and so many creative visual gags. And on that note, since I haven't been able to bring it up yet, I am obsessed with the way they draw the characters now, especially SpongeBob himself, with his more oval-shaped features and cute little eyebrows. A perfect omen for what SpongeBob SquarePants is about to become, just a few short episodes from now. I've seen the forest through the trees, and it admittedly looks magnificent. I feel like that's thanks, at least in part, to the rough storyboard artists of Con Castaways. Chris Allison and Ryan Kramer, both of whom previously worked on Uncle Grandpa together. 7 out of 10, number 30 on my list. good episode and all, minus the ending that's forced as all get out. But if these guys get stranded in the woods one more time, I am going to hunt them down the most dangerous game style. Also the first time that we witness what is essentially just Squidward's new catchphrase now. Typical. Okay, so this is a pretty charming idea for an episode. SpongeBob gets his very own pen pal to talk to, and through a series of increasingly wacky misunderstandings, which are thankfully not obnoxious, even if the twists and turns are predictable, SpongeBob has to uncover his inner Amelia Earhart and learn how to fly an airplane. I can only imagine the apocalyptic horrors that would befall this Earth if SpongeBob ever became a professional pilot. Very small note, but the title for this one seems kind of ill-fitting. I get that it's called Snail Mail because Gary's slime messing up SpongeBob's letter is what kicks the conflict into high gear, but surely a more pen pal related pun would have better described this cartoon in its entirety, right? In relation to the opening, am I the only one who finds it weird that the French narrator never shuts his mouth? I mean, it's funny and all, it's just that he never usually interjects this much. He describes the events that are unfolding before our very eyes in meticulous detail, like it's an episode of Dora the Exploder. Putting SpongeBob through a ride-or-die struggle like this is a nice way to test his character, and it results in a lot of bonkers airplane gags. Props to the deleted scene where it's revealed that Sandy used to be an aviator aficionado herself. And special attention must go to my man, Steve the Scythe Salesman. He's a real one. 9 out of 10. Crash landing at number 17 on the ranking. An utterly chaotic romp we've got here, but wholeheartedly a blast throughout. The ending bit where the airplane runs out of gas mid-air is a reference to the Looney Tunes short Falling Hair, but with a punchline to call its own. It's really good.
We ran out of gas.
Oh, don't worry, I've got this. Yep.
Apologies in advance for the lack of a background in this segment, but somebody broke into my house and robbed me blind, which includes the backgrounds that I normally use. As if I already didn't have enough reason to salivate at literally anything this era does. One of my favorite running themes throughout the next several seasons are the episodes with unique and different character dynamics / matchups. Take all of the SpongeBob characters, put them in a mixed drink, shake that thing until your ass falls off, and see which characters spill out. You call it lazy writing, I call it creative experimentation. And for the first of its kind, we have a Gary and Plankton episode. Shellback Shenanigans doesn't count, they barely interact in that one. Except this matchup is more of a rivalry than anything else. Cat and mouse, Tom and Jerry style. Tom and Jerry is the greatest slapstick cartoon series in human history, so anything that takes inspiration from it has captured my immediate attention. Pineapple Invasion is a fabulous love letter to those old Chase cartoons. Side-splittingly hilarious, Plankton canonically likes the taste of snail litter more than pineapple. Trippy as hell visuals. The inside of Gary's shell is apparently its own pocket dimension. And a rivalry that the show has never done before. Even the stuff that's not directly related to Plankton's breaking and entering, like the bit with the skunk at the beginning, or Gary's very own odious cartoon light bulb gag, are etched into my brain with bloody snail slime. 9 out of 10. Number 14 on the list. The information we have regarding this episode's production is very interesting, by the way. Apparently, it was originally going to be a board-driven episode that Mark Ceccarelli was going to write and storyboard by himself. However, duty called when he became the co-showrunner for SpongeBob, and he got too busy to work on it. So Kaz and Fred Osmond eventually picked up his slack with the writing and storyboarding respectively, and here we are. I really wish we had more insight like this, because the animation production process is so damn fascinating to me. More fascinating than this featureless void that I'm still stuck in! Speaking of voids of the Beakman variety, YouTuber Beakman's Void is our next special guest. Everyone give him a warm welcome. And after this video is done, go to his YouTube channel and watch his video about why Season 12 of SpongeBob is peak. As a fellow Season 12 enjoyer, it's really good.
Hello all you happy people, I'm Beakman, and I come from a void, a YouTube channel called Beakman's Void, formerly known as Mortified Productions. And as you can tell, I was summoned by the magnificent Luke Vaughn to talk about my favorite episode of Season 9. Unless I'm here for a Christmas party, but I think we're a bit out of season. Now to formally refresh my faded and jaded memory of the season, I ended up watching the entirety of Season 9 to make my selection, because technically speaking, I actually took my hiatus from video making and my second hiatus from watching modern SpongeBob around the time Kenny the Cat came out. Though now that I've rewatched this season with a significantly less smudged critical lens, if I could be completely honest, after thoroughly analyzing the season, I can confidently call it a mixed bag, but surprisingly with more good than terrible. But at the same time, there are a handful of episodes that made me about as passionate as a bureaucrat on Corporate Casual Wednesday, more specifically within the first half of the season, which were the ones I remember seeing back in the day. The second half, on the other hand, is a much better story. But watching it back to back, I definitely have a better perspective on it nowadays. Considering how spread out the production time of this particular season was, starting from fucking 2012, wrapping up in fucking 2017? The latter half of this season definitely sees an increase of overall quality in terms of animation, ideas, and execution, which leads into the 10th season, where the overall quality is much better between each episode. So while it's clear that Nickelodeon was going through some sort of weird evolution during this time, even though they ended up fucking over former integral creatives that helped make SpongeBob what it was, Harvey Beaks creator C.H. Greenblatt, I can definitely tip my beak to this era of the show. So at the end of the rainbow, I decided to stick with an episode that I'm already reviewing, Pineapple Invasion. This is a great example of how your typical Plankton episode should go. It's fast-paced, it's loaded with witty, comic book-style banter, it's chock full of crazy visual gags with Plankton going through all sorts of wacky bullshit to try and steal the formula. I fucking love it. It reminds me of why I typically love Plankton-based episodes, when they're done right. Now, if I could say a couple of quick things about this episode before I go, you have no idea how much I was vocally stimming when I first heard Plankton say his iconic "I went to college" line.
Fooling anybody, I went to college!
Also can't get enough of the whole sequence of when Plankton is inside of Gary's shell. Seriously, I'm enamored by the way the art style for the backgrounds and foregrounds change in just about every panel, not to mention the trippy neon color palettes. It pleases my eye holes immensely, especially with some of the different homages to famous artists. Around the whole, I never would have imagined in a million years I would have seen an episode where Plankton would quite literally have some sort of batshit insane Tom and Jerry scenario with Gary, of all characters. It's exactly what I look for in a modern Plankton episode. And for now, that's all I have to say. Thank you, Luke, for having me on the video. 'Twas a true honor to take part of this. With that said, take it easy and have a good one, folks.
Plankton's antenna in this scene forms the shape of a light bulb, so are we counting this as an odious cartoon light bulb gag? I'll count it, sure. Unfortunate, but I guess Season 9B's peak streak had to end at some point. Though, going back to the idea of unorthodox character pairings, Salsa Imbecilicus brings us our very first ever Sandy and Karen episode. Kind of. Yeah, so people don't really like this one very much. At all. Folks tend to disown any association with this show whenever it has an episode that's just a little too weird or a little too dumb. which is kind of cowardly if you ask me, but whatever. The main trick up this episode's sleeve is stupid humor, which I personally have a fondness for and quite like a lot of the time, but I guess I can see why it would be a turnoff for others. It's definitely an acquired taste, to be sure. So if I like the central character pairing and like the core humor here, then what's the problem? My major complaint with Salsa Imbecilicus is that the story is just a huge, unfocused mess. The opening act here is about Plankton trying to dumb down Mr. Krabs to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula, but once that backfires and affects the whole town, we switch perspectives to Sandy and Karen. So you'd think that the rest of the story would be about their character dynamic and trying to re-educate the whole town, but no, that only takes up the middle of the episode. After the education montage, we cut back to Plankton's perspective of him trying to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula once more. That bump on your head is looking a little too large for my liking because we really didn't need this. The computer and rodent team-up should have been the main selling point here. And if you really wanted to still include dumb Sheldon as a major part of the plot, have the rest of the episode be about Sandy and Karen having trouble re-educating him into modern society. That way the two halves of the story actually intertwine by the end and don't feel completely disconnected. This one is just kind of dumb, and for once I don't mean that as a compliment. 5 out of 10, number 37 on the ranking. On the bright side, which is ironic to say about an episode filled with so many dimwits, this is the first time we see a new rough storyboard artist crew member, Brian Morante. Originally, this was just going to be a one-off gig for him, but the SpongeBob crew ended up liking his work on Idiot Sauce so much, they immediately hired him full-time, with Brian being one of the main rough board artists for the Vincent and Mark era up until the end of Season 12. I can't exactly explain why, but Brian Morante is my favorite rough board artist of this entire era. His art style is just the perfect combination of both goofy and appealing. If you're thinking I've bumped my head and have forgotten to mention something, then you're absolutely right, because this is the episode that has the abominably infamous scene of Patrick's tongue licking Plankton's butt in a very detailed fashion. I have very mixed feelings.
All right, everybody, what am I? Come on, it starts with a T.
Tree?
Mutiny on the Krusty's most notable feature is for starting a bit of a micro-running gag. This exact drawing of Squidward in the fetal position will continue to be used in a very small handful of future episodes. And for good reason, because it's a silly looking drawing. Other than that, this one is good, but I don't have much to say. Having a new location that's this visually rich and a monster design this unique, here's concept art of the creature from Kaz himself. And then only choosing to feature the infighting between the characters instead of exploring this new wonderland is certainly a choice. Mr. Krabs here especially is written to be a fucking jackass for not very justifiable reasons. And even if it leads to some good bits, SpongeBob threatening to spend Mr. Krabs' first dime is funny on its own, but the facial expression he makes while saying so just sells it. It's just not the direction I would have steered the story personally. If I see any of you bilge rats complaining about the lack of continuity with Mr. Krabs' first dime, I will personally fund your very own funeral. An underwater rip current being the thing that jostles the plot into action, though, is a very well thought out underwatery attention to detail. Also, Chad moved from the artists to design some new incidental background fish who end up sticking around for the foreseeable future. 7 out of 10, number 31 on my list. Once again, I did not know until after I finished the script for this one that this is actually a very hated episode, so Once again, I'm sorry. We only have one more tooth to pull out of the mouth of this season, and by extension, one more episode before the wacky upbringing arrives. And for the first ever finale for an HD SpongeBob season, we are gifted with something more low-key. No bombastic specials, no experimental shorts, just an honest-to-goodness, straightforward story about Patrick losing his last baby tooth. I am personally gravitationally attracted to things that are cute, sweet, and sincere. I've been watching the anime K-On! As of writing this entire script, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. So Patrick mothering his last tooth and not wanting to let it go out of fear is like the complete antithesis to what people who don't watch the show anymore stereotype Patrick's character as now. Another thing about this era that I'm a huge fan of in general is their willingness to go from place to place and have way more new areas. On average, there are more locations per episode now, and the whole tooth is good at showcasing this. The carnival, on top of a tree, the dentist's office, at the boat docks, you get the picture. Definitely helps liven things up and give most episodes more variety than just the same 3 locations that have been pestering me since at least season 7. The writing here is also sharper than a dentist's toolkit, as the ending twist that the Tooth Fairy was actually a fairy boat that ships teeth away is unimaginably clever, even if it would end up being retconned seasons later. But once again, episodic comedy. The tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth, Lord have mercy, I am so glad they didn't end up going with that title, is a delightful, squeaky clean way to end a season that has been trying its best to scrub some of those early cavities away. 9 out of 10, number 15 on the ranking. And with that, Paul Tibbitt now takes his leave from SpongeBob SquarePants, as this is the last season he's ever worked on. He mainly left so he could focus hard on working on the 3rd SpongeBob movie, the original version, the one with the alien cats, but sadly that never came to be. With someone whose career on the show has simultaneously been both illustrious and turbulent, I have to pay my respects. His time as showrunner may have had its flaws, but he was trying his best, and I respect the crap out of this guy. Paul was instrumental in helping shape SpongeBob's image into what it is today, and I can't imagine the series without his involvement. Thank you, Paul Tibbitt, for your years of service. And with that being said, next time on the SpongeBob SquarePants Retrospective, we'll see the series make its first ever major shakeup. And if I didn't make it obviously apparent by now, I have some choice words, all of which being positive. Don't lose your minds. Alright, and that's another SpongeBob SquarePants retrospective in the bag. I'm gonna try and keep this outro as short and concise as humanly possible to not waste your time, but knowing me, I'll probably yap on for about several minutes. But anyways, of course, thank you all so much for watching. If it wasn't obvious, this was the most ambitious in the retrospective so far. I don't know how we keep managing to top ourselves, but, you know, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, thank you so much to everyone who contributed, all of my editors, Bermunzi for the meme stuff, Scuff for the drawing, fucking, Beakman's Void for guest starring in the, Pineapple Invasion segment, Roy for the thumbnail, and of course, Torchu, aka my friend Walter, for the awesome SpongeBob You're Fired battle animation sequence. That was something I literally came up with on the fly, by the way, as I was writing the script. Presented it to my editors, and everyone just unanimously agreed, okay, yeah, we have to do this. And I'm glad Walter took up the mantle, I am so proud of him. I am so thankful. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out, and I hope you all enjoyed it too. It's basically just the hype moments and aura section of this retrospective. And if you haven't figured it out by now, because I don't think I ever brought it up in the video, if everything is going according to schedule, of course, this video, the Season 9 retrospective, will have released on July 16th, 2025, and that date is significant because it marks the 10-year anniversary of SpongeBob's post-sequel era, and I really pushed to get this video out on time, because this is something you can really only celebrate once, and I really didn't want to miss that boat, so fingers crossed I am recording this in early June, so fingers crossed this actually gets out on time, but I'm sure it will. And now we're done with the post-movie era too. And, you know, for all of the shade I've thrown at several episodes, I'm glad it happened. I hold no ill will against Paul Tibbitt, or any of the artists who, artists or writers who contributed to these episodes. Of course, it's just me giving my, you know, cartoonishly exaggerated, presentation for my opinions. For entertainment purposes, of course. If anything, I feel like we should start giving our flowers to the post-movie era, because there were so many episodes from Seasons 4 to 9A that I thought were genuinely underrepresented and underrated, and I'm glad this retrospective has given me an opportunity to actually present some of my hot takes out there and give some of the more underappreciated episodes some love. And speaking of giving some episodes some love, I feel like this retrospective has evolved so much, like the script writing style and the editing style, and of course all of the bits and bobs and, you know, little bells and whistles that we add along the way. We have so much of those now that I've actually been considering just going back and at some point remaking the Season 1 retrospective. I don't feel like any of my opinions will change necessarily, but it'll have better script writing, better editing, more editors, and just more polish and, you know, a couple of other additions here and there. That's what I've been thinking about doing. For the Season 1 video specifically, not any of the others. And, you know, I guess if you guys like that idea, let me know in the comments, and I'll further take it into consideration. Well, more consideration than I'm taking into now, of course. Oh yeah, and something else about Season 9B specifically, too, and this is where things get slightly heavier, is that apparently there was actually quite a bit of behind-the-scenes drama with Season 9B specifically. And what I mean by that is that there are public accounts out there of a couple of the writers that worked on Season 9B being unfortunately mistreated at Nickelodeon. Specifically Josh Androsky and Claire O'Kane, which is really sad and really unfortunate. Especially with Claire O'Kane, because she was the one who wrote my favorite episode in all of Season 9. Mall Girl Pearl, so it really is unfortunate to hear that these things have transpired, but, you know, it's the world we live in today. What are you gonna do? To put a lighter spin on things before I go, I wonder when it's gonna start getting to a point, and this is just me purely hypothesizing here. I'm not asking anything of anyone, but I wonder when my SpongeBob retrospectives are going to get to a point where, people start making YouTube poops out of them. I mean, I already have YouTube poops in, like, the videos, but I mean YouTube poops of my videos. Maybe it's just my YouTube poop brain-rotted brain just thinking about stupid shit, but only time will tell, I suppose. And with that said, I don't know if the Season 10 video is gonna be out on time. If the Season 10 video is done, because the original plan was to release it the day after the Season 9 video drops, which is on, you know, July 16th. The Season 10 video will come out July 17th. I don't know if that's happening anymore, I mean, of course, this doesn't affect you, the viewer, because by the time this video is out, I will have already decided and probably made an announcement about it. But if the Season 10 video is done, then I will see you guys tomorrow, probably. If it's not done by now, it will probably be delayed to late July. I guess we'll see about that, but once again, thank you all so much for watching, and thank you to every single person who has helped contribute to my videos. You guys mean the world to me. And prepare your fat asses for next time, because this is where we put our wacky faces on. I am so excited.